Hello. Welcome to the Exorcist.
Rough. So,
hardest theme song in
night,
all of podcasting.
all of Kubrickian history. Who did I just hear? There was like another movie that I just saw recently that was based on Kubrickian lore. That's like a total pop movie that's out right now. It's failing me. I don't know. I was super distracted because of the whole Epstein thing. So I was thinking about the Year of Intelligence COINTELPRO, Church Committee hearings, the Rockefeller Commission, who stepped down, right? Rockefeller kind of Elon Musked himself in the Nixon administration, replacing himself with Ford. President Ford was like a clown, like one of the greatest physical comedians of our time. You know, internationally, not everyone can speak English, but everyone.
Jerry Lewis, for sure.
The dude could fall downstairs like a champ, you know what I mean? And like that's the thing that you need to be funny, I think. So I put up the whole 5-hour Church Committee hearings from 1975 so that everyone could watch that. That's up right now. And then it was just like it's MK Ultra was announced, Family Jewels Operation Mockingbird. Family Jewels is the one that I thought was the most interesting because it's all about espionage and blackmail of elites. Particularly famous is Fidel Castro, but it doesn't stop there, right? Like the Family Jewels was for the Shah, for the Russians, for everyone, just to figure out how you can entrap them and blackmail them into
shit, I got a comment here.
All right, well, we're good. That's all I wanted. Talk amongst yourselves.
I got a comment. What did that well, you can't bring it up now, but
no, I can. I'm still here. I'm literally just in the corner while you guys do each other. Just like, come on.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's backstage stuff. Come on.
We'll go off that. The date. There was a date. The release of the documents of the Family Jewels.
Yeah, you want me to go back to that? You want to see?
June 25th, 2007. Oh, holy shit. That is the day after the Chris Benoit murder-suicide. Everything was on the media was talking about Benoit and that whole thing. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Even Chris Benoit was a professional wrestler who lost his mind and killed his wife and son on June 23rd. Looks like, and so there's vague conspiracy theories around it, you know, that are not really taken seriously by anybody but the most paranoid people. But I didn't know this was timed with the release of those documents. So the way that they would like to, you know, create a controversy to distract from the release of such a thing could only add to the pile of idea that
I no longer believe in distractions. I'm pretty sure all distractions are actually symbolic. So for instance, and I wish Anna Nicole Wordsmith was back for this one, but I know she's probably busy. But if she jumps in, awesome. She talked about the P. Diddy thing, and P. Diddy was a blackmail. And I just thought that was just like, oh, okay, like this is just everything they do is so that when you read it, it says exactly what you need to hear to know what's really going on, you know.
Do you remember the name of Kanye West's wife? Bianca Sensori. Bianca Sensori. Translate that one.
Story. Censor.
It's literally white censor.
White censor.
Dang, bro. It really is.
It's just like,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anna Nicole Wordsmith brought up something else incredible yesterday, which is that the TSA dropped the shoes. Like you can wear your shoes in the airport now, which is amazing because yesterday Uranus just moved into Gemini. And so the sort of mythological stuff going on around that becomes super fascinating because think about Mercury with the flying feet, right? Mercury ruled Gemini.
Flying feet, good one. Yeah. Oh, I gotcha.
Sandals with the wings.
Flying
also,
feet.
the first day the first day of Mercury's life, he leaves his crib and he goes and he steals Apollo's cattle. Like he steals all this cattle, and then he wears backwards feet. Like he wears backwards shoes to make it look like he's going the wrong way. And
you know what cattle is in Latin is vacus. So vaccinus, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know where it came from? Is that from the Greek then? Is it like Greek, Latin to English kind of thing?
Is it Latin? Let me see. Vacus. I don't think it's. I know it's Latin. I don't know if it's Greek. I'm trying to look that up right now.
Does it etymologically? Is the Latin derived from the Greek? I don't know. Whatever.
Let's ask somebody smarter than me in Greek. I'm going to be hanging out with a bunch of Orthodox people pretty soon, so I have to understand this. So vacus, vaca, like Latin root. Is it connected to the Greek?
Etymology.com, but yeah.
Latin word vaca, cow, not directly connected. Greek word bous.
Okay. Not directly. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So we lost our souls after 9/11, and now we got them back. Is that what we're saying?
It weighs on our soul.
There's a total shoe thing in Eyes Wide Shut too, which a fellow on Twitter messaged me on Substack with this stuff about the shoes in Eyes Wide Shut, and this idea that the way Bill is recognized at the party is not through anything but his shoes, which he does not. He doesn't change his shoes, and so. But then if you go and you watch the costume shop scenes, like things are reappearing and disappearing all the time in every single shot and every scene. But like he goes into Millich and you see the layout by the door and it's one thing, and then he goes in the next day and it's a different thing. But what is it now? A wall of shoes. And so like there's these shoes, you follow the shoes, and so there's a whole thing like that. And he actually even makes the argument that the woman at the party who recognizes him is not Mandy, but actually this woman that he's seeing in the examination room. Who is silent. You only see her for a few seconds. She's bare-chested, and apparently she sees. That's I don't know the whole theory.
Wait, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, but although just so you know, the actress who played Mandy told me directly that is in fact her in that scene when she says, "I'm ready to redeem him." So she emphasized that to me.
But that's not her voice, right?
It's her voice. It's her
not
voice.
Her voice.
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett's voice.
Oh, you're right. I forgot. Kate Blanchett's voice. So that's how they F with you. But that is her body. Like I don't think she would have told me that if that wasn't her. She's not like in on the secret to that level.
She did the acting for both scenes.
Yeah.
But he's also caught because
the shoe thing is a legit like.
I forgot about the Kate Blanchett thing, dude. That's the thing with Eyes Wide Shut. It's
it's Wizard of Oz, right?
Oh, this connects because the you guys all know this, but to the audience, to the few who might not, that the person who wrote the article, whose name is on the article in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, when it says that the model has died. That person, I forget their name, we could look it up, but it's the person who first broke the Epstein story.
Yeah, Larry
in the New York
Salona.
Post in real life later on.
A real life guy who's like he's been there at the New York Post, and people are like, oh, is it a real guy? and apparently it is. But
it is. It's a real guy, and he's been known before the Eyes Wide Shut to have broken those kind of sensational stories, or at least to have reported on them. So it's not that outlandish that he would use him, but it is kind of crazy to have a fake article with a real name of a real journalist, and it does just so happen that he is the journalist that very first broke the first article about the Epstein stuff.
It's insane.
there's also like massive typo in that. Like
there was the article right there we were looking at.
That article you can look at. There's like one line that's like doubled.
That's the name, yeah. Larry Solona, is how I say it, yeah.
But
there he is.
Bill's also caught because of the taxi cab, which brings us back to like regular commuting, right? Which is part of the significations of Gemini, which is this regular sort of like short-term trips. It's not the long Sagittarius journey. It's the neighborhood. It's also the neighborhood. And so Uranus wants complete freedom, right? Like Uranus is a planet where its desire is freedom and being released from restrictions, from Saturnian restrictions. And Gemini is the sign that leads up to the summer solstice, where you have the most yang sun, right? The sun is gaining in energy every day. It's getting higher and higher in the sky up to its peak. And so the day Uranus moves into Gemini, we no longer have to take our shoes off, our magical shoes. We gain our souls back, right? And
we're in need of healing. Sorry.
yeah, healing. And but along with that, a really reliable determination of like humor in astrology is looking for dignities between Mercury and Jupiter, which goes back to that mythology of, because when the calf stealing agenda is revealed, like Jupiter's laughing. He thinks it's hilarious, and it's just like, it's all good, don't worry about it. And then so if you can find dignity in the chart between Mercury and Jupiter, you can see a sense of humor, especially if Uranus is aspecting either of them, because Uranus is shock, right? And humor is really our energetic release after shock. It's all about surprising someone. So if you're startled and you laugh, you get rid of the fear. You realize it's not something to be worried
Well, you're
about.
also not thinking when you're laughing. Like there's a gap in thought. It's also, one could make the argument, if you look at crying and laughing, like, Bill breaks down crying, she had a laughing fit. So he's like, now we're gonna have a fucking laughing fit. You know what I mean? Like before he goes on his journey. When so this was presented by what's his name? Ronald. You probably know, Alex. What's that there's a guy who's been in the sync community forever.
Walker?
Yeah, so he had Bill and I have been laughing our ass off about this lately. But he's a proponent of the Band-Aid theory, which is that when she takes the weed from the Band-Aid box, that it's like totally laced, and that the rest of the movie is just like a trip. Like they never really leave the room. But anyway, no, I wanted to say something to what you were just saying. It's a little early in the afternoon for me. Where were we just at? What did you?
We were talking about humor, and also just the fact that a lot of the insanity of taking your shoes off is humorous to begin with. It's like the toilet paper with COVID. It's like they're laughing.
Right. So I was going to say, like when you're crying, you're having a release, but you're also resisting. There's a contraction that is a resistance. Laughter is a release without resistance. Right. Like it's a strange kind of paradox. Like it takes less muscles, they say, to smile than to frown. Like, you know what I mean? Like like resting bitch face takes a lot of muscles. Like that's a lot of action that's involved in resting bitch face.
Well, like I kind of went through this week because I talked about my cousin, and it's just been this sync fest around his death. Like we go out of the like funeral home, and there's like a double rainbow that meets his parents' house, which was just
all the way, huh?
Yeah, all the way on both sides, and one of them was where his parents' house was. So then at the end of his funeral, he was a big truck fanatic. Like they chose, as they're walking out to bring his urn out to the funeral home, they play the song Convoy. Okay, like with the CB and everything, we're gonna have a convoy, and I start laughing. And the second the release of the laughter happened, I started crying, and I hadn't cried for whatever reason, right? Like that release hadn't happened, and it became really clear, like the altar at a funeral is where this soul has energy. It's where they're able to interact with us. We put a picture of them, we put flowers, we have the candles, right? And the burning candle brings in the spirit,
right? Unless it's 2020, but yeah, go on.
Oh. Yeah. And it just became really clear how powerful that rite is, and when you cry, to me, that's that's something that's seen in the other world. It's seen in the spirit world. That's where they know their life had meaning in this realm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that Bill says, I'll tell you everything when he just sees the mask. He sees the mask is there, the breakdown, he's brought to his knees. In the original script, when she tells him her dream, it's extremely biblical. Extremely, like, it still carries an air of biblical, like the Adam and Eve looking for the clothes, like, where are our clothes? But like, he gets crucified in her original dream, like, or isn't that how this, where there's like these flying over the like whole of human history or something, and like Bill is made into some kind of like Christ crucified character? It's so weird.
Well, it really takes in the Lover's card too, right? If you think about it, that scene
For
where
sure,
absolutely,
Gemini
and the devil card.
That's right.
Well, the devil is Kubrick, right?
Yeah,
with them on the leash.
For real, right? Because that's the thing, is that if you're talking about like Rider-Waite, that devil is like, that card is so similar to the Lover's card. And then there's the whole hidden hand thing we see in Crowley's depiction, where we have Romulus and Remus as the twins, and like, even you're looking at Apollo and then Gemini, Apollo is the successor of Gemini in the space race, so yeah, that's kind of crazy, huh?
Andreas, check the private chat, because there's a link. I just linked to the page about the shoe bomber, and sync here is the fact that the guy's name is Richard Reed, and isn't that the name of the Fantastic Four character?
Reed
Richards. Okay, well,
Reed Richards. That's syncing.
Reed Richards, and the Fantastic Four is coming out on July 27th, and I'm already pinpointed that as being Kash Patel is going to be 2,370 weeks old.
Really?
When the Fantastic Four comes out, and
Kash Patel is one of the weirdest agents, right? He makes the White Castle movie, and then Obama just like moves him front and center for the administration, right?
Is this the first Fantastic Four movie? Because it seems like they've been trying to make this movie for years, and it just doesn't.
That was the thing. The guy from Charm just died.
What?
You need to find the original Fantastic.
Dude, they just censored Andreas, bro. That just happened. Like, what I'm supposed to say.
I don't even know what he said.
But... tell us, Andreas, are you back?
The guy from Charmed, who was in the original Fantastic Four movie.
Okay, but there's an original one that
Chris
they made
Evans.
to keep the copyright.
Chris Evans. I don't mean the '60s one, but I mean the guy Julian McMahon.
Oh, him. He just died.
He just died right before the release of the new Fantastic Four movie.
Okay, so
Doherty died recently too, right before the reboot of another thing that she did, just right before Michelle Trachtenberg died, right before the new Buffy reboot, just before the guy who what's his name? I'm sorry, from the King of the Hill.
Right.
Multiple guys from King of the Hill have died in the past.
Yeah, but right before the reboot, Jonathan Joss was murdered. Right, the guy who played the alien, the alien. Wow, the Native American, the opposite of an alien, who was recently. His whole character is that the husband is a conspiracy theorist and his wife is being cucked by Jonathan Joss.
And by the way, the guy who played the conspiracy theorist, Dale, died while filming. So half of it is his voice and half of it is going to be another voice.
Crazy.
So both of them went.
Whoa.
So Nancy's still lonely now.
You guys seen Friendship with Tim Robinson? So that director who did Friendship, he said he wanted to shoot it to be like The Master, like in the style of Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. So he took like Paul Rudd as the character from Anchorman, where he plays like a weatherman, and he connected that to I Think You Should Leave, and did this whole thing. But throughout the movie, they keep making, there's an ongoing joke about, did you see the new Marvel? And like that, he's like, I heard that it's crazy. And like his wife in the movie is in the last Fantastic Four. So I'm not hip to Fantastic Four, but it's funny that this is coming up right now, and this is worth bringing up, because since I saw that, I kept on thinking of the Fantastic Four in a way I hadn't before, about this idea that the Qliphoth contort to mirror Tetragrammaton, to mimic Tetragrammaton, which is kind of like, I've repeatedly like related Guillermo del Toro's film Mimic to like this idea of the clipo doing this mirroring, because tetragrammaton's literally four grammar 4, right? So like I don't know, I just what do we got? Fantastic Four is always pretty gay. You have a guy who can stretch any part of his body.
It's the worst comic characters in my opinion.
Hard rock man. There you go.
But another interesting thing about the Fantastic Four is they're the 4 elements.
Yeah,
You've got fire for Human Torch, you've got earth for the Thing, and it's interesting that it's kind of reversed between the Invisible Woman, who's air, and then Mr. Fantastic, who's a liquid, because he's the scientist, right? So you'd think he would be the air sign, but the rest, like Johnny Flame, is super fiery, and the Thing is super stable. He's very Turian. He's very into his food and everything.
Yeah.
This is DC, not Marvel, right?
No, it's Marvel. It's like
this is Marvel.
Yes. It's the one where Jack Kirby and Stan Lee got together and really created the Marvel universe. Like almost everything you know about Marvel started.
Bill, you've been working on an incredible sync with the insane DC movie that they made. I would think that you'd know this is Marvel, because wouldn't the Fantastic Four show up in that crazy thing? Because doesn't that include everybody, that version of it?
It does have the Fantastic
that version of it. Have you guys seen this? Like, so Joss Whedon made like the edited down version. And then who did this?
Zack Snyder.
Yeah, the Zack Snyder cut of what's the movie?
Justice League.
League of Justice. Justice League. Yeah.
The black.
It's 4 hours long. Version? Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch that?
Yes.
What'd you think of that movie?
I liked it. I mean, I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. I thought it was, for what it was like kind of had this cohesive vision to it that I admired.
Unlike what happens to every DC movie once the executives get involved, because they're trying to both do something
operatic in a way that Marvel movies are not.
Yeah, like they're trying to do something dark like Nolan did, which was so successful for them with Batman, but at the same time have MCU style lightness, and it's just a mess every time.
Well,
so I imagine the
Joker, so
yeah,
and I feel like the Wonder Woman 1984 was like so campy and really got a terrible rap for like the type of what that movie was. It didn't attempt to be genuinely dark at all, and it was just like a super fun, ridiculous movie. Like I thought it was great. I'm like, what was the beef, dude? Seriously?
Well, see, that's
so much I wouldn't have liked it as much. But that's
what brings me back to saying you guys should find this 90s Fantastic Four movie that was made but never meant to be released, because they just needed to make a film to keep the copyright going. And so
that's why it's okay.
Okay, it's super, super low budget, but it's amazing because the producers had no interest in it. It was just give them just enough money to make the movie, and the guys who made it made this very like honest to what Fantastic Four in the comic books was. Like it's one of the best fan service movies ever. It's and so campy. It's amazing.
I never looked at Fantastic Four as a comic book.
What's your sync with it, Bill? With the Justice League movie?
Well, it's 4 hours long, right?
Yeah.
And
that's
David
like
saw some of it with Floyd.
I saw a pretty big chunk of it. I saw 3 albums, so yeah.
And it's just beyond. It's not even sync. It's just composition. It just seems like, here, you guys wanted this. Here you go. You know what I mean?
It's Pink Floyd albums in order, starting with
Metal, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, Animals, and finishes with The Wall.
Which we may have to, the ending of it, apparently, we may have to do some tweaking, see what else might operate there. But like, dude, crazy stuff happened, dude, for real. Like he watches it in black and white, and there is like posters or advertisements for this movie that came out like black and white. Like it was justified. Like it's crazy. So I had the idea as we were watching it that I kind of want to watch the Dark Side of the Moon sequence in color and then go back to black and white, so it has like, or sepia or whatever, sepia, how do you say it? To go back, like do playing with the color, because like, you know, Wizard of Oz goes from black and white to color, back to black and white, just like the album of Dark Side of the Moon. If you look at it as a loop, because the way that the beam, if you look at the LP, the beam meets the beam on the back, and there's 2 triangles facing 2 different directions. So you have the 6-pointed star encoded into it, but you're only looking at one side because there's no Dark Side of the Moon really. Matter. And then the rainbow comes back around, so it's like this thing, just like the Wizard of Oz is. You're like, she goes through the cycle, you know. But there's like stuff that happens, dude, where it's like, and this thing that the way that Bill worked it out with the timing, like there's a repeated theme of like doors and keys that just so happen to align with when the album ends and the next album begins, where it's like now another door is opening and then it's another key. Like it just happened like multiple times. Like as we get, I'm like, really, is there going to be another door with another key for this time? Like it's tripping me out.
You've got that effect at the end of Welcome to the Machine, where it's literally a door opening on a party, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to be critical in my mind, but at the same time, like just like I was open to what he was showing me, but there were certain things that tripped me out, and there was a justification because they released an album of like the score or whatever that's the same length as the film, and it's 4 freaking hours. So they it's like encouraging you to play with it in this way, and it makes sense with the Pink Floyd thing because when people, like it is the quintessential sync. And I make a joke that I'm like, hey, Dark Side of the Moon doesn't count because everything syncs with Dark Side of the Moon. Although my experience has been, even though I played it with everything from Wheel of Fortune to Wizard of Oz, nothing has compared to Wizard of Oz. And people will say the 2001 sync is, I can see it, I can appreciate it. It's not the Wizard of Oz for me. The Wizard of Oz, there's things that happen the way it's her landing back in Kansas, where it lands on the way that it hits with home again. I like to be where it can. It feels like they're giving you a gift for having entertained it for that long. Like it feels like the ultimate sync wink for a sync film. Not that there's not other extraordinary examples of that. I've just never seen such an extraordinary example with something with Dark Side of the Moon. But,
well, here's the crazy thing. When Dune, the original Dune came out, the Villeneuve version, right? There was a lot of resurrected talk about Jodorowsky's project, where he wanted to make the ultimate 70s just cluster psychedelic fuck mind thing, is just like everything all at once happening
with Pink Floyd, mind you.
But he was going to have different bands for every planet, so I can't remember how that worked out. But it was like Pink Floyd was the heart. No, it was the Atreides maybe, and was it like Curved Air or something like that? It was supposed to be it was
the hamburger who said he couldn't have them. He met with Pink Floyd and they were just more interested in the hamburgers, and he's like, you aren't serious. I can't work with you unserious people. You care more about the hamburgers. I'm giving you gold right now. Yeah. Anyway,
like them playing in Pompeii, and they're just talking about pie and stuff in between.
Yeah, totally. But
Hungry
Bill,
boys.
Go on,
I watched Dune with Pink Floyd in the theater, like the opening week, and it will rip your face off. Like it will, like. The sequence in Wish You Were Here, where it's like after the first track, that whole mechanical sounding thing with like the machines, like when you get to that point, you're locked in, like you're just fucking locked in, right? And I believe that, didn't Nolan help produce Dune? Christopher Nolan's Syncope?
Was he an executive producer on Dune? I'd have to check that. I don't know.
Someone check that out real quick. I'm pretty positive that Nolan's Syncope was involved in the production of Dune, right?
Didn't Nolan have something to do with this DC?
Well, I'm getting to that.
It's not listed on their filmography.
It's not listed on their filmography?
No.
That is in the credits, and we saw that. Did we not? Is it not in the credits? Like he had some part in it? Executive producer? I don't know. I thought so. Whatever.
I don't know. But I didn't know that this Justice League was produced by Syncope, that Nolan was like an executive producer on it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I thought he was associated with Dune. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't know if he's associated with either of them, to be honest.
Let's look into that.
He's associated with Justice
League. When we were watching it, he was in the opening credits, and I was like, really? Christopher Nolan? Okay. But yeah.
So Dune 1 syncs with Pink Floyd. The sequel, Dune 2, syncs with a band called Swans. And this Justice League syncs with both Floyd and Swans. Like, I'm drowning in this shit right now. It's a little bit overwhelming when you're trying to present a case and the evidence is like 28 hours of film watching with like 3 albums. It's just insanity, right? It's insanity. But it all boils down to this point. The reason why I like watching movies in black and white, because there's that moment where you forget you're watching in black and white. You know what I mean? Do you ever watch a movie that's in black and white? You don't remember it as black and white. You remember it as something alive. Right?
Yeah,
There's
like
a
the Lighthouse or Eraserhead.
It's like Kubrick's photography in the 50s was black and white, and it was stunning, and it grabbed you in the chest. I don't think color photography does the exact same thing, because there's something that happens inside your head that is taking this information and putting it back together, but it knows it's fake, but then it becomes real. All of color film is trying to tell you is like, this is real. This is real. Like visceral, emotional reactions, not necessarily like, so there's this thing that happens in black and white. So I've been watching these black and white movies. I watch Dune in black and white, right? If I project it on my own wall at home, I don't watch it in color. I watch it in black and white. So I've been doing these black and white syncs for a few years. And then I realized, like David said, when they re-released Justice League for the Zack Snyder cut, the poster for it was in black and white. The movie's not in black and white. Why the fuck is the movie poster in black and white? It just seemed like such an odd choice for something that's not that way. So
Guillermo del Toro made a black and white version of his movie Nightmare Alley as well.
Oh, right. That's true.
Is,
I'm wanting
a
to
remake of a 47.
I mean, he made it that way, so you don't have to. But what, you know, Bill, so I don't want to necessarily speak for you, and, you know, correct me if this isn't the thing, but I mean, this is something that I see with Kubrick is like, it really feels like there's an encouragement to play to that this is malleable. Like cinema it has a malleability.
Active watching. Active
right.
viewing.
So yeah, active viewing.
Rather
And
than
that's
passive.
multifaceted. That also has to do with, like, you're bringing up this shoe thing in Eyes Wide Shut. Never even occurred to me. I've looked at this damn movie from every angle. It's why I have Kubrick tattooed on me, is because there's no other filmmaker out there, creator out there that is like, just when I think I've thought or I know everything. So it's taught me a lot of humility, because, you know, so many people want to be the Kubrick expert out there, like almost like I have a relationship with Kubrick, like we have a special connection. But the thing is that if you really go down deep into the Kubrick, you know, the catacombs, you'll find that there's always new doors to open, and there's always new places, and it's just it seems pretty endless. I see why Mark Leclerc went freaking crazy with this, because it gets to a point where you're like, is he Saturn? Like, is he Satan? Like, what is happening? Like, how is it this far reaching? It's like, because, you know, and it's something about the creative process. And I've tried to remember, like, when I'm working on something, this is no Kubrick, you know, but like, if I'm putting a sync film together and I'm playing with the volume in between the vocals of the volume of the film, I will raise it just out of curiosity to see, well, what does happen. And if it's not something that whatever, I'll put it back down. But just that curiosity to be like, what happens if you do it like this? And that's the thing with Kubrick, is just how many cuts can you do? Like, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most cuts for a single scene, you know, like, how many, you know, and they let him burn through the film. How did he get that freedom? Because film is expensive, dude. We're not talking digital. We're talking film. So it's like, and then he sets fire to the film he doesn't use. So
like
we
Jan
don't.
Harlan said he has
the freedom to use time.
You've seen the hospital scene at the end of The Shining. Has anyone seen that? I've seen it. I saw it years ago.
Well, good for you.
Do you have a special relationship with Kubrick?
I didn't. No, it was online.
How do you see it?
You could see it. You could see when.
I don't believe you.
No, it was online, and you can. At the time, there's been examples of stuff like this. It's like when we went into Iraq, and there's like I forget what they call that thing. That's like that crazy, like, giant rectangle pyramid type thing that they have, like the square with the pyramid. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it was gated off. Like in Iraq, like soldiers like filmed themselves like going around that, and there was like owl statues and shit like along the edge of whatever. Like they're like walking along. I'll sometimes see things like in my life, and I don't like, now I try and like bookmark anything as best as I can, or download if at all possible. But like at the time, it was years ago, I saw some footage of the alternate ending of the end of The Shining. It's not on any supplemental like DVD or anything like that now. I thought that this is just something that was out there and that was more readily available because I saw it. You know, they goes into the hospital. They're Wendy and Danny are in the hospital, and it's just like there's, you know, it's a short scene, but it's the other end of The Shining. They didn't set fire to it. He didn't set fire to that. Like he literally burnt a lot of that film, if not almost all of it. Right. So yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that more people, and also the other scripts for these films I can't find now. It would be really cool if I could find the earliest scripts for Full Metal Jacket with a completely different alternate trippy ass ending. Everything was gone over, and we have these final products. Like if you go to the Kubrick archives, I could probably find it in the Kubrick archives actually, but I didn't go to films that were made for Kubrick when the couple days that I was there. I was there for like 6 hours at a time for a couple days, but I just went through his unfinished products like Aryan Papers, even AI and Josephine and Napoleon, or rather Napoleon and Josephine, the original working title. But I don't know.
Well, to kind of push this just to maybe some closure on the Sync album thing, but I'm going almost like backwards, right? You take out the sound, I take out the color. It feels like the music puts the color into the emotional experience and it becomes this one thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You guys know about the Sphere in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So I remember when the band Fish first dropped that they were going to do 4 nights in the Sphere. And in their message boards, there was tons of conversation about, you know, because this band can do, you never know what they're going to do. They're pretty prolific in their creativity and how they always reinvent themselves. And Fish was famous for one night, I think in Colorado, out of nowhere, covering the entirety of Dark Side of the Moon in the second set of a concert.
Well, they used to do that every Halloween. That was their musical costume, is they'd play an entire album from somewhere.
Well, no,
and then they did it the night after. The night after, they played this small show. I don't think it was in Colorado. I might be wrong. But I thought it was in Texas. They played Dark Side of the Moon the night after doing Velvet Underground Loaded for the big show. And then they did it out of a story. It was out of, I remember I used to listen to it a lot, out of a harpour or something like that, where they tell a story. And so he just starts, you just hear the heartbeat, and the story just became all of Dark Side for like
little Jimmy. So like when Fish was going to the Sphere, I'm on the message board thinking they're going to do at least one cut from Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz playing on the screen in the Sphere. Yeah. It would seem like just a perfect marriage for just a little thing, right? And the crazier part of your brain says, what if they just fully dropped into one round of the album and they did a Wizard of Oz behind them? I mean, how cool would that be, right? Cool. Flash forward, you know, that didn't happen. Right. But
in the Sphere, I got to break in the Sphere. They could have played the album once, but they could have had it going 3 times over. Right?
Oh, exactly. We're in the right place. Yeah. So, but what did come out of my brain after that was like, well, that venue isn't just for music. It could be for movies. And how amazing would it be to see a sync film in the Sphere? And I remember saying, I hope that they do Wizard of Oz at the Sphere, because that would be like the most entry level way to kind of establish like a sync Sphere theater, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, what is this, 2 years ago or something like that? Well, now that they're not making enough money on this venue and they got to start selling more tickets to just more generic events, they are doing Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. Have you guys heard of this?
Mm-mm.
All right. So you're like, holy shit, it's happening. You can go put it together, right? But here's the bizarre thing. They're showing Wizard of Oz at the Sphere, but it's an 80-minute version. They're cutting like a half hour out of the original film, and they're doing an 80-minute Sphere version of Wizard of Oz, so you can't even go in there and do the sync.
Yeah, you can't. They've rigged it.
Really
so
buried.
Do the thing that would be the obvious thing to do. But you know what? Maybe it seems like what I would actually prefer, even though that would be amazing to do, would be the 23 minutes and 26 seconds of Echoes and Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite in the Sphere. You know what I mean? Like and the way that they could play with the imagery of that and make it something else, you know, like
Wonder why they do that. I mean, is it just because of space and time restrictions? They don't want to have
Andrea
a whole...
says in the comments, like the missing Epstein footage. Yeah.
Here's my
Well,
question.
so what I'm
What does the Epstein footage sync to? It's exactly what, 4 minutes and 59 seconds. So
It's August 9th. That's
Song
the
or
Wizard
like
of Oz premiere date.
Bill, what do you think?
is it really?
Yeah, the world premiere of the Wizard of Oz was August 9th. And
It was the Helter Skelter day?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so then that's also the day of the grand opening of the Haunted Mansion, although that's the day and the year of the Helter Skelter murder. Well, there's a couple days, but you know what I'm saying. August 9th was the day that Sharon Tate was killed.
Right, yeah, so it's 30 years exactly. 23 plus 7.
Oh God. Weird.
The only reason I can think why they edited the movie down is for a couple of reasons. One, attention span. It's not enough excitement to attract a large crowd, even in Vegas.
Wait, I'm sorry. They're just playing the movie.
They're just playing the movie.
It's not.
But
It's
they're
just
gonna be doing some kind of effects
It's an
with it too. They
80-inch.
have to. I mean, it's the freaking sphere. Like they're not. You're and it's the nature of the thing. Like, and also sound wise, they're going to be doing some kind of effects with the sound. But we don't know what they're actually going to do until they do it, right, Bill?
Oh yeah, no one knows what they're putting together. But what I think they're doing is they're establishing a couple of things. One, they're making it more of like a meta event. It's like a celebration of Wizard of Oz. It's not Wizard of Oz itself. So you can now do that to any movie. It's like the standard has been set. You could have a celebration of any movie in a sort of truncated form. So that you're like, this is not the movie. This is the sphere, right?
Well, speaking of Christopher Nolan, he did that with 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's the Christopher Nolan cut of
the Christopher Nolan cut.
The exact equivalent of what they're doing. And maybe, check this out, Bill, maybe it's because they're re-editing it to go with something else that we're supposed to decode.
Well, and then the most base level interpretation is, well, you can sell a lot more tickets for an 80-minute movie over one day than 110 movie. It's like 1 or 2 more screenings a day that you can get people into, and you can probably get more repeat visits if it's something new, right? Because everything's got to be new and novel. To just go see an old movie in a new way isn't exciting enough. So I think it's financially purposed. I think it tells other creators, hey, you don't have to do the standard thing. You can kind of mix it up. But I'm fascinated to see just what the turnout is and the response in it. But it is kind of disappointing that it robs me of like this initial internet dream of seeing a sync film in the sphere. It just worked out in a very strange way.
Is this to do with drugs too? Because I mean, seriously, like 2001: A Space Odyssey is the pace of LSD specifically. Like or psilocybin would work too, but it meets you at the pace of the meditation that comes along with with LSD. Like it is a LSD film. That's why they say the ultimate trip, which is interesting. Like that was the tagline, was the ultimate trip for 2001 when it came out in the 60s, 1968. But the thing is like Kubrick has no, like he doesn't, when it comes to psychedelics, he's not like he's no Terrence McKenna, you know what I mean? He's not advocating it, and when he's asked, he's like, yeah, no, I don't. That's not something he does or that he did. But it sure feels like he was catering to psychedelia, but it also feels like exactly what Pink Floyd said when asked about that. And like and I'm not the only one, I've had access to insider information about Pink Floyd with their goings on with psychedelics, and like they'd have parties at the house where you take acid at the door if you're going to enter this party. Like like but if you watch like the Pompeii documentary, I think it's that one, or maybe it's another documentary where he's like, we don't do drugs, you can trust us, like where I think it's David Gilmour, and he looks so just completely like he's just been on drugs for days. He's just where he's at. He's like, you can we don't do drugs.
Yeah, it's Pompeii.
You can trust us. You're like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, I took mushrooms to watch Space Odyssey once, and my dog was sitting right next to me, and I was coming up on them, and the proto-human was about to touch the monolith, my dog tensed. Like I could feel this lapdog tense, and a lightning struck like very close the second the human touched the monolith. It was like, okay, this is something. I didn't finish the movie. I was like, this is too much.
I had an experience with that, kind of like that, but I was gonna watch Dr. Strangelove on Substance, and it was like wasn't working out, and I couldn't find it or whatever. But and then later at night, I finally got it to work, and I got it on, but there was some kind of technical difficulty where the audio was like broken and it was slowed down, so it was playing and but it sounded like the devil. It was
Oh no!
that was just starting. Oh god, I had to turn it off, and it kind of sent me in a bad way. But it didn't. It's not a good movie to watch on.
I can imagine.
It's like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is not a good town for psychedelic drugs. After the whole time,
The rhythms of that movie are just really weird. I don't know, but I think that's true of all his movies. And there's a weird rhythm because it's all meant to be together. See behind me.
Totally.
Something worth mentioning, because you brought up the 23 minutes 26 seconds ending of Space Odyssey. So what's wild about that is that 23 degrees and 27 minutes, 27 mind you, so you get a 237 in there, of degrees of declination is as so 2326 is as far north and south as the sun goes at the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, if you measure it from the celestial ecliptic, 2326. That's the boundaries of normal reality in astrology. Okay, and Saturn is the boundaries of normal reality in astrology as well. And so if you get to 2327, that's where a planet is considered out of bounds and operates eccentrically. So I find it fascinating that he brought the film version of it, Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, to the edges, but he didn't bring it past Saturn.
Right. So just to be clear to listeners who may not have experienced this so directly, but the timing of Echoes as it meets Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite is that you have David Bohm says its origin and purpose still a total mystery, speaking to the monolith. He says that, and immediately afterwards you have Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite is written on the screen. So if you get that first beep, that's the sound, it's like kind of like a submarine sound in at the beginning, the very first thing that happens at the beginning of Echoes, like as soon as the song starts, it goes boop. So like you get that to happen the second that it pops into the writing of Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. It will make it so that the album ends, or the song ends, Echoes ends, the very split second that it says written and directed by Stanley Kubrick. So like that, if you want to get the exact timing of the sync, that's how it's done. And it happens to be 23 minutes and 26 seconds. If you want to say have an extra one for the 27, that's actually Kabbalistically resonant, because it's extremely common for there to be one for the all, they say. So like Kabbalists would like treat Aleph, that you can always like add an Aleph, which is interesting when you look at the gematria of the Greek for the Scarlet Woman, because the Greek for the Scarlet Woman is 667. So if you're looking at the 666 related to the Babylonian sun square and all of that for the beast, right, being the sun, being the false god, then you just add one for the all, and you get the Scarlet Woman who rides atop the beast in the Greek. So there's all these examples throughout the book of Revelation that point back at the Hebrew pretty explicitly.
You know what's
interesting? So the 666 is one of those, because of 6 times 6 times 6 is your 216, and then you have the Son of Man in Hebrew. A man has the gematria of Gavora. Look at it. We need also Spake Zarathustra to come in as he enters.
How's that
You know, it reminds me of the I Ching as well, because if you're doing it with the Yarrow stocks, you take one stock out for the Tao, so you always have that extra. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it seemed very, very likely that 2001 will screen in this sphere kind of environment.
Oh yeah, dude, it's inevitable.
And
right?
Considering that you're essentially inside the pod when you go into the fucking sphere,
it's like the pod. Yeah.
Wow.
That happened.
Oh, and if you were
Christopher
screening
Nolan's gotta do it.
2001, you could just have everything around you just be space. Right? So when you're looking you've got to space when they're outside and everything.
With the monolith, yeah. No, that's insane.
You could also kind of achieve a similar at-home effect with a good VR set, right? I mean, to be
absolutely.
totally...
The sphere definitely feels like. I mean, it feels like,
dude.
Stepping, it's like it's VR, non-VR. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
No,
but
dude,
everyone
this is
kind of
everything, dude. It's so crazy. It's like, and Bill, I wouldn't be so hip to the sphere except for Bill keeps bringing it up to me for the last like few years. But it's tripping me out because it relates directly to virtual reality and this idea of like, if you look at like the future, like it'll be more and more accessible to have virtual reality. Like it's inevitable, right? So it starts out, to who can afford it or whatever.
Yeah, the
but
goggles are just not.
Look at it's no longer on the Wikipedia page for the sphere. If you type in the sphere, it used to just take you to ground zero. So like if you did a simple Google search and just wrote the sphere, there's a Wikipedia page for the sphere that was the art structure that was designed from the same guy who designed the two towers. And in the original Wikipedia for this, it used to tell you, and you can see this in old Jake Kotza videos. They've since removed it, but I have screenshots of it myself from back in the day that I took from Wikipedia because I included them in some sync films that I made because Jake turned me on to it. But it says this art in between the two towers was admittedly designed to mimic the Kaaba at Mecca. Okay, so when you pray, if you're a Muslim and also if you're Jewish and you're doing tefillin, in both cases, you're to face the directive when you're looking at Jerusalem and Mecca. Like this is the equivalent. Like, so if, in other words, if you had a mega event at the sphere that is, synchro-mystic crazy event, and all these people, and this is into the future, just consider this isn't just what's happening now. Like the seeds are being planted, but all these people are going to be tied in with their VR. It's technology imitating the internal world, just like the Klepo mirror tetragrammaton. You're going to have like all of these people being connected to this event that's happening. And you're going to be experiencing it through your VR, because VR is only going to get more and more intense in its ability to like give you the sense that you're here at this place, right? So like this totally relates. So they rotated this sphere between the two towers every 24 hours, in the words of the creator, to mimic the people on the pilgrimage encircling the Kaaba at Mecca. So that was a cube. This is a sphere. It's like it's totally like Metatron. Like there's something freaking crazy happening with technology and AI as it relates to the two towers. Look, and we're talking about
crazy. They busted the sphere, and like this is what it looks like after the destruction of the sphere, but it's still pretty much there. But I mean, it looks more like an art structure after the collapse of the towers than ever before.
Yeah.
And the other name for it is the König sphere, right? Which means king in German. So it's the king sphere, because the artist's name was Fritz König. But still, just the king sphere. There's something about that. And what it always reminded me of, because of the fountain, is the Disneyland water ball at Tomorrowland, right? Tomorrowland has this ball that you can, any kid can push and it'll move around because it's so gently lifted by the water. It's on like a hydraulic system, essentially. Tomorrowland's entire symbology connected to the König sphere.
Check that.
And if you're deep into fish lore, the year before COVID, Fish was supposed to have a festival called Curveball. Noah, did you ever hear of Curveball, the festival?
No, I haven't been as engaged with it in the past decade or two. But
yeah, no, to be fair. So they had this festival that they were going to do, and I think they had Magna Ball, Super Ball. This was going to be Curveball. And it was an event that was canceled at the last minute, like 2 days before. There was some sort of water problem in the area, and they had to like completely cancel like a 3-day event that about 80,000 people had purchased tickets to. It was pretty big blow financially, I imagine, to their band. But the curious thing is, one of the main features of the campgrounds where they were going to have this festival was something called the Sphere. just like, it was this bizarre like dress rehearsal for COVID or something, because like the whole festival got locked down. And I don't know. Yeah, that Sphere thing. There's something going on there. I'm not,
dude. And the Mickey
Well,
Mouse.
one of my favorite movies.
Right there. never saw that, but yeah, all these little Mickey Mouses at the base of the sphere. There's a little Mickey Mouse head.
Twister, the sphere versus the cube makes it very clear that this is sort of like an eternal war of some kind.
So what's the name of that director of Twister who said that he tries
Jan de
to
Bont.
put a Kubrick reference in everything he's ever done, which is
Well,
very
that's
similar to the Trading Places guy. What's his name?
Jan de
John
Bont.
Landis.
Freedom to Fascism or whatever. Yeah.
Honestly, doesn't every Hollywood movie put a Kubrick reference in it at this point?
Yeah, but they don't always tell you explicitly that this is what they do, and it's not always as overt as it is with this guy. Like, look at The Shining and Twister, you know what I mean? Like, and he's got the Wizard of Oz in there with the Twister. Like, it's all like it. Yeah, he's doing the same thing. This kind of cinematic imposition thing.
He did the movie.
It's more like it's
Light,
more
which
than
was
just
a movie that was directed by Paul Verhoeven, who did the Starship Troopers. But that's what I was thinking at the beginning of this when I was like, which movie is it that 1996 Speed was the movie I was thinking of, because Speed scene ending at the end of Speed, when they crash the bus into the street, you see that the movie that they're playing is 2001: A Space Odyssey, right?
Jan de Bont, like
same director.
I'm pretty like in the case of Twister, it's less that there's like Kubrick references in it, and it's more like the movie is completely designed around the Kubrick. It's not even it's more than just, we're just going to reference things. It's like,
it's not just an homage. It's literally like it's connecting itself to the tapestry.
But in a weird hostile way, like the movie gets ripped apart, and the Kubrick, the villains are all named after Stanley Kubrick characters and references, and the villains have cubes in sensors in their ripoff thing, Dorothy, ripoff of Dorothy, and so I don't know. It's weird that there's a weird kind of, and Jan de Bont also was a cinematographer on Hunt for Red October, which has the Stanley as a bear references, and what a bear is homosexual connotations, and pretty sure Jan de Bont is himself
a later thing. Didn't that develop like in the 90s or something, or
what?
The bear kind of like as
that was 1990 was the Hunt for Red October.
Okay, I'm just saying, when like the idea of like a bear, and kind of if we're gonna go there with it, because when
I
think Russia, like I see like Russia and the US. When I see the guy in the bear costume in The Shining going down on the other guy, I see Russia and the US. Like that's like some kind of weird statement there, I don't know. I mean, I'm not entirely certain of the.
I mean,
it's uncanny. You can't really define.
Of course,
that,
that's absolutely, because that's what Hunt for Red October is about. Is the defecting bear, Russian bear.
Wait, what was that remaking of The Haunting? We were just discussing this. Scroll up a little bit.
Jan de Bont remade The Haunting in 1999. It came out on July 23rd.
So like
after Eyes Wide Shut.
In our messaging, I thought that we came to The Haunting in a different way. I was just saying that The Haunting was a
Virginia Madsen's in that too. Her brother just died. Michael.
Yeah, I mean the original Haunting, like this is like freaking one of the first scary movies I was ever shown as a kid. You had the same experience. The special effects in the original Haunting, when the door just like bends out like that, like now it's become so commonplace, effects like that. But it was so, and the thing about the original Haunting is that you're in her head. You're hearing her thoughts throughout the whole freaking movie, to the point that sometimes it's like kind of hysterical, like it's kind of funny, like especially that scene with the spiral staircase where it breaks apart and she's like, gonna, she's afraid she's gonna fall or whatever, but you hear her processing it the whole time. Like it's the first psychoanalytical movie is The Haunting in that respect,
I feel uniquely qualified as maybe the closest one to a proper bear on this panel. So
I'm just saying, Candyman is probably the first because it's 1992 and it's the exact same idea of being inside the head of a psychopathic lady who thinks
The Haunting came out in the 50s, bro.
1963.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the remake.
Excuse me,
Sorry, you're talking about the original Haunting. Okay,
and the cell was very similar to that exact same premise. But quick fact check. There was a bear magazine in 1987 based on bear culture that started in the 70s. So it definitely precludes this.
All right,
Thank you.
all right. I got you. Shining's what,
Fair
1980?
point about The Haunting, man. It's a good movie. Don't get me wrong.
Well, besides, David, earlier you said Kubrick had the freedom to play with time. He actually has a really tight Uranus-Saturn square in his chart. So he's got the freedom
You
of
seriously
Uranus.
say he has a tight Uranus? That was pretty good.
Yeah, everybody knew it. This is tea time. How many tea times have you had today? This is ridiculous. But no, I was saying that he had the freedom to burn film.
Well,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
have as many shots as you want. Yeah, so that's
what I'm saying.
time, yeah.
He has Uranus in Aries and he has Saturn in Sagittarius, 2 fire signs.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So he's able to work with the Lord of Time in a way that's totally unheard of and burn
At that time. Yeah, totally. It's unprecedented.
Indeed.
But yeah, do you have any more commentary on the bear phenomenon, Thomas?
I mean, unless I want to just completely jack up my search algorithm, no.
Your name.
There's a bear in another bear in the 9th configuration, and what's his name?
True.
Stanley.
Right, and the 9th configuration. I mean, talk about like a strange attractor resonator for Kubrick stuff. I mean, that's weird. The crucifix on the moon. Where was that?
Yeah, it's a sequel to The Exorcist, basically. Literally, it's like a spiritual sequel, or in the same
rewatched
universe.
The Exorcist recently. Did you guys know that? I didn't realize this. I watched it when I was a kid. It had been a while. Did you guys know that, the stairway where the guy dies, that they say, oh, that she murdered him, she pushed him out the window or whatever, and he falls down the stairs, and then at the end the priest falls down the same stairs? You know what I'm talking about in The Exorcist? You notice what's written on the side of those stairs in red? It says
Red
pigs.
rum?
It says pigs in red. And I can't tell what the first word is before it says pigs, because there's like obviously another first word there, but they never show you what it is. And I'm like, what does that remind you of?
Yeah.
It's Sharon Tate's blood. Sorry to get gory or whatever, but it's like the blood of Sharon Tate on the wall in at the residence. Yeah. So what does it say there? Some HT? What is it? Fight pig? Is it talking about the cops?
Yeah. Fight. It's got to be fight.
It's got to be fight. I mean, but
definitely.
You see what I'm saying? Like this is like just the amount of parallels between this and Rosemary's Baby is like unreal. Like even like the furniture that slides across the room, is the exact same furniture that's like hiding the entryway from Rosemary's room to the Cassavetes, Cassavetes. Excuse me, I was saying the actor's name, but yeah, no. Totally nuts. Yeah.
Do you guys remember Rob Eger's breakdown of The Exorcist, where he focuses in on the director?
I've never seen it. I'm down.
So he had a breakdown where he contended that the director of the film that the mother became a part of, he's at this party, and the party's happening, and I think the director is kind of secluded in the kitchen. He's kind of a quiet person. He's not really talking to anyone. And he makes a leap to say that this director was invited to the party so that he could sneak up to Reagan's room and have his way with her. And this is what triggered the break into psychosis.
Right.
And I think he's the person that she murders first.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Chris
but
Knowles
then he also makes
and took it way further.
He also makes the contention that the director is very similar to Polanski.
Right.
So then I didn't know about the pigs written in blood down the stairwell. It just seems all too much.
It's funny that we went from talking about The Haunting to The Exorcist, and the fact that Stanley Kubrick was 2,370 weeks old when The Exorcist came out.
Oh my God.
Which I don't know if, yeah.
Well, in terms of okay, Hall, let's go.
I always think of him as the Exorcist. Like,
just so you guys know, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, totally syncs with Olivia Newton-John's album Physical. And I put that together for a multitude of symbolic reasons without realizing till later that she's exercising. Like that's the point. It was the most popular, like it was top of the billboards the day and year I was born. So, but that's irrelevant to this. Like, this is a disco movie. Like, it's so freaking weird. Like what they did with the sequel. Like, I don't know what was going on, but like this is a cult album, Physical. Just so you know. And I'm pretty like I've gotten to the point that might sound insane, but I've gotten to the point that I'm pretty freaking sure that this album has like occult significance having to do with exorcism. That's the joke of physical. Exorcise the demons. Yeah, just saying. Sorry.
That's good.
That's perfect.
Yeah, she's there with the dolphins on the inside too. They came with there's like the poster of her like with the dolphins, and there's
I guess the other thing I didn't mention was that, well, connecting it to all the things, we're talking about The Haunting, we're talking about The Exorcist, Kubrick's that old, but The Haunting itself came out 237 weeks before 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh.
So, I mean, this whole idea of The Haunting is like a key fucking trope in Crypto K, like Sean and I's discussions of like, we are being haunted. What is the haunting exactly? The monolith is a haunting. The monkeys, the men, the humans are haunted
of Julia, right? Full
Julia.
Circle, aka the
Zest. Yeah, exactly.
Dude, like you gotta like, this is insane. Like, this is where we get into that place where you're like, this is always the question with the sync world, is we're like looking at these films and there's kind of this implicit idea that the more something pronounced something is culturally, that the more like magical whatever. And I think it's the opposite, dog. Like, I think like the movies that are like under the radar, that's just like had to be made for symbolic reasons that hardly anybody knows about. When people say like a movie has a cult following, really that's the same thing as saying like it's a niche, but like almost no one ever talks about the fact that you have The Haunting of Julia, where also known as Full Circle, it had two working titles, just like Sharon Tate's first film 13, which also had the working title of Eye of the Devil, 2 titles. Her last film called 12+1 also had the working title of 13 Chairs. Like there's this phenomenon, and the fact that you have Keir Dullea, Dave Bowman from 2001 had a child with Mia Farrow, who played Rosemary. These both came out in 68, right? Both about childbirth, one about the birth of the Christ, the other one about the birth of the Antichrist, right? Rosemary's Baby in 2001. They have this child, and in the very first scene, they choke on a green apple. It's the Beatles, man. Like, I'm like, there is something so like, this movie had to be made for symbolic reasons, and there are examples of this kind of thing where you're just like, it's not about like that, oh, this movie is like the biggest box office whatever. It's like, no, this exists and it's hidden. It's hidden
got
away.
A good example of this. I think there's the movie called The Teddy Bear Picnic, which was made by the guy that does the voice for Mr. Burns and a whole bunch of other characters, Harry Shearer, and he makes an entire movie that was making fun of Alex Jones sneaking into Bohemian Grove. And if you ever see this movie, it's clear that it was not made to make profit. It wasn't made to garner a new audience. It was made for a tiny, tiny little niche of people. Like, how many people are even in the Bohemian Grove? And out of those, how many would care about going and seeing a movie about this? So it's wild, but it's absolute proof that they have these little passion projects that just exist for like their own purposes. Like, be damned for the rest of the world and sales and profits or anything.
Right.
That Teddy Bear's Picnic movie, I've got it noted on my map of The Shining. I basically made a map like my Wonka thing, but using The Shining dates, and a bunch of stuff pops up, and Teddy Bear's Picnic is one of them. The same day as Death to Smoochie. They came out on the same day. Death to Smoochie is like a great movie about it's actually Robin Williams plays a Willy Wonka ripoff named Rainbow.
Isn't it Fight Club? Isn't that the thing that the like Mr. Rainbow doesn't really exist and it's just like his own trip? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
There's plenty of different interpretations. But
one connection I made with Death to Smoochie is isn't this a thing? Am I tripping? But like the last time that I saw, I feel like The Men Who Stare at Goats, when they're talking about like that they're experimenting on people, and they're like, they refer to it as the dark side. So remember, this is to do with the Force and the Jedis and all this stuff, and it's got Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor, like referencing the Jedi thing directly with Jeff what's his name, Jeff Bridges.
Goldblum.
But they reference that when they say that it was the dark side, they're locking somebody in a room, and I think they're showing him Barney. Wasn't it Barney? Am I tripping? Like, in Men Who Stare at Goats, is there a guy locked in a room being forced to watch Barney on LSD or something, or just on repeat or something?
I don't remember that, but I've only
trying
seen
to
it once years ago.
Yeah, I don't. It's like I thought that there was some because this is a thing that is years later, and it's a play on that they did these experiments with people with LSD, and then in the future, what's the equivalent of that? Like they were drilling holes in people's heads, they were keeping people in a coma in real life, like and playing things on repeat, just figuring out if they could brainwash these people. This is the stuff that's not covered
It
out
was Barney.
with a
It
black
was
marker.
Barney.
You know what I mean? Like what was covered up with the black marker, if we can look at them drilling holes in people's heads and playing shit on repeat while they keep them on acid for months.
Well, honestly, that also seems because that was John Ronson, right? That did Men Who Stare at Goats, who, by the way, was also part of the Bohemian Grove.
He's
thing,
He's the guy that Alex was asking every question of when he wanted to know what the hell they were doing. Yeah,
he was the one that knew everything. And it's funny because you even hear John Ronson like, "All right, Alex, like we're not going to get arrested, right? Like you're not going to do anything violent, right?" And he kind of laughs, but he's doing it in a very serious way. Like he's legitimately concerned Alex is going to go off the hook. I want to mention the Men Who Stare at Goats. Those techniques, like for example, showing them Barney over and over again. This is something that was either adopted from or influenced, like the same thing that happened at Waco, where they just play a bunch of random rabbits being tortured, or like hard rock before they realized that Koresh was actually into hard rock. They were like blasting metal and stuff at him. And then in Abu Ghraib, I think, or Guantanamo, they had all these other releases where they would just blast Britney Spears for 72 hours at full volume in someone's cell, along with a whole bunch of other just random pop music.
Yeah. So you saw that Andreas confirmed that they're playing the Barney theme song for the mind control torture thing or whatever, depicting what actual stuff that actually went on with MK Ultra, which totally ties back to the church hearings, subcommittee hearings that we were talking about at the beginning, which Andreas is pointing out has a relevance to what's happening right now with Epstein. Because like the way that we were so gaslit around all that stuff, and then it was just like that was the last time that we had real disclosure on the weird stuff. No one would ever believe it. Like if they didn't show it. Like when I first saw that clip of the gun being passed around, the heart attack gun, like I totally thought that shit was fake. I was like, there's no way. And then like you have to find the full hearing, jump into it, and you see, you're like, dude, this is not fake at all. He passes around the gun, explains how it works. It had an ice bullet. This is old technology. It would leave a mark that was like a tiniest red dot. They wouldn't even notice it in an autopsy. They just think it was like a whatever. If
they even do an autopsy,
if they even do an autopsy, the poison wouldn't be picked up like in an autopsy because it's so minute. They'd have a heart attack within 10 to 15 minutes after getting shot. The bullet dissolves. It's an ice bullet. It's using like CO2 like you would for like a BB gun or a pellet gun. It's like it's freezing a bullet and instantly freezing a bullet, and then the bullet melts. It dissolves. And like you're like, this is old technology. Like where have we gotten? I shared on. I said this before a while ago, but to listeners who don't remember, I was like, I went off years ago about Bernie Sanders. I was like, well, if Bernie Sanders keeps up what he's doing right now and thinks that he's actually gonna go somewhere with this beyond just like playing sheepdog, then what they're gonna use that heart attack gun, like I kind of did like a post on Facebook that was kind of like, mark my words, like pay attention to Bernie Sanders has a freaking heart attack. That's not, and then it was like less than 3 weeks or something after I posted that, it's like Bernie Sanders has heart attack. It was the first run. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh, there you go, because that'll put him in his place, won't it? Like that'll make him comply, won't it? If he has any kind of inkling of an idea of like, maybe I could be president for real, they're just like, dude, boom.
Hey, real quick, what year did Alex Jones and Ronson go to Bohemian Grove? Was it pre 9/11?
2000.
It was 2000, right? Yeah, it was right before
the movie came out. It was a year to the day after the release of Eyes Wide Shut in 1999.
When did Ronson make the Boxes documentary?
2010.
Oh, really?
And at the time in 2010, he was the only person in the world that was known to have complete access to all of Stanley Kubrick's archives, which are now at Elephant and Castle.
I know we just moved past it, but I just wanted to mention, again, harping on the fact that I put up the church committee hearings 5-hour video earlier. And if you wanted to see them release the heart attack gun, you can actually see them talking about the heart attack gun in the church committee hearings. That's where you first hear about it in the public light.
They don't just talk about it; they pass the gun around the room, which is what this is depicting. Yeah.
Yeah, I got ChatGPT to make a nice little image out of it. It's like a little bit like Mormon art version of it, but
That's
I have
great.
the
Kinda wanna
color
see
photo
that.
here. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's the actual photo?
Yeah, this is from the church committee hearing, and you
I
can go
prefer the AI
to
version.
No, I wanna
you like I
find
know,
either
isn't it
one.
nicer? But you can go to the military.com, check out there they are talking about the heart attack gun right there. You got to watch the whole 5 hours, dude. Just like get drunk
Yeah.
and watch it if you have to, but make sure you
Okay.
know about the church committee hearings because this is what they were doing in the left hand while the right hand was just waving around Watergate. You know, like the left hand had your dick in their hands underneath the table. Like you got to see what's happening. The other thing that kind of concerns me because we brought up the Guantanamo Bay playlist is that this is the kind of music I unironically like to listen to all the time. And before I knew, you know what I mean? Like I was born, you know, I'm like Bane, you know, I was like raised in it. Okay.
I was raised in the darkness.
Were the names of those two guys on the panel Church and Tower?
Was it Tower?
John Tower, I think is his name.
Tower. Okay. Right.
And you know, a heart attack gun is shooting water. It's sort of like this reverse baptism or something. Like that's
fucked up.
And there
wouldn't have the priest is there with the squirt
A
gun.
baptism gun is a better
baptism
name. Baptism, yeah.
That actually happened. Oh God.
There also would not have been a church committee hearings without Watergate. So you're talking about baptism. A baptism is a Watergate.
Oh, right. And then you have the Sharon Gate. You have the Water Tate, Helter Skelter. Her water was getting close to breaking there, and I'm sorry, you could get kind of dark with the puns there, but no, there's something crazy happening. Splash Mountain, there you go.
Which is only in Japan or only in Tokyo now, yeah, because now it's Tiana's Wild Ride or something in Orlando.
Which sounds like a totally screwed up X-rated film that you can only get on DVD.
Dude, you know what? Oh God, Jason Barrera, Out of Sight, Out of Mind. I wish he was around. I like Jason Barrera, but Jason Barrera suggested that David Bowie's song "China Girl" was actually about the China character from not David Bohm, L. Frank Baum, in like the Wizard of Oz world. Like that's not in the film, obviously, but he had like a character that's actually like fine China. Like the character is Chinese. Like he believes that Bowie was literally referencing the China girl in, I don't know if you know, in Let's Dance, there's a song My China Girl or whatever. Somehow that was relating to what we were talking about, but yeah, sorry.
Well, that gun is also
Tokyo. Did a leapfrog.
That's the most scorpionic weapon you could possibly imagine. It's frozen water, which is, you know, Scorpio being a water sign towards the freezing end of the year. And then it's a tiny, tiny pinprick that you wouldn't even know where it came from. The slight, whatever slight it was, very scorpionic to get back in the back, right?
That's an interesting point in terms of the alchemy of all this, right? So there's like the alchemical bath, right? Like, so like I think a lot about this kind of stuff, like the way that Jim Morrison was not a true story, right? Because he was taken from the bathroom of the club, and if you believe the owner of the club, who said on his deathbed, was interviewed on his deathbed saying that Jim Morrison died in his bathroom of his club, and that there was people there and they committed to secrecy over what they saw, but they quietly moved him to the hotel because he didn't want to be implicated. He didn't want his business implicated into it, but they put him in that bathtub, which became like symbolic, like that old painting where the guy, I forget who did that, but there's like the painting of the man who's dead in the bathtub, you know, but it's like the alchemical bath. Like if you watch Hodorowski's The Holy Mountain, like they make a whole thing of that, which was the reason that that George Harrison refused to do the part, was because he didn't want to show his anus. And Hodorowski was like, it's kind of like the Pink Floyd thing with the hamburgers. He's like, God, if you're going to, we have to, we're serious. Like, this is a serious thing. He's like, I'm a Beatle. I can't show my butthole in the movie. He was like, then you are not serious. Get out of here, you know. And it's like, and then we ended up with another actor. And it was, you see the way they did it in the actual movie. It's like, dude, George Harrison totally could have done that. He just had a different visual, you know, of what would be implied. You know, he's like, you're going to molest me on camera? Like, I can't.
That's a very different timeline where George Harrison is getting his ass washed in a feature film. Like, I mean, I can't imagine that world. That's a different world.
You're talking about
that's like not that different of a world that I'm.
Honestly, Ringo was in worse movies than that.
The Magic Christian was a worse movie? What?
Caveman?
The point.
There's all. I
Dude.
think Candy too. Wasn't he in Candy?
Oh, that's right.
Well, he was the conductor on the little train show. Thomas the twin.
Dude, he's making a comeback. Did you guys listen to Ringo Starr's relatively new album? It's like
I don't think that's
album.
really him. That guy that's out there doing jumping jacks on stage.
You don't think so? I think it is.
I think it's some guy.
Probably Paul McCartney, the real one.
The real Paul McCartney disguised as Ringo Starr. Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but no, I would.
Ringo's born on 7/7, and I wanted to talk before this ends about the whole thing that just happened last week.
Talk about
around 7/7, and because it's kind of crazy. Like, what was it? July 1st was 77 years and 7 months since the death of Aleister Crowley, who authored 777. Right. And so I was just like, well, 7 days after that is 7/7, 25, 2 + 5 is 7. And so that'll be 77 years, 7 months, and 7 days. So that whole week, but I was already looking at July 4th because it was 666 plus 666 weeks since the ninth gate opened in the United States on Christmas Eve in 1999.
Right. You know that the whole thing with the Ninth Gate release date has everything to do with that book that the Book of Shadows is based on from 1499,
which is all 666. Just but then so the crazy thing I guess here was I had no idea, but on July 5th was going to be the Black Sabbath final concert where Ozzy Osbourne gets on stage. And how old was Ozzy Osbourne on July 4th, the day before? And 666 times 6 weeks old. In other words, 666 times 42 days. So Ozzy Osbourne was born on this 666 week track with the Ninth Gate release and 7/4/25, which is in the middle of the Crowley 7 week, 77 year, 7 month week.
Dude.
And then who started the show started with Jack Black playing Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, no, that was so crazy.
Right.
Jack Black, I've already covered as a fucking moonchild of some high status because he's like, he was in Minecraft earlier in the year, which came out on 4/2, which was the 2001.
You see the video of where the kid
that was 74 days ago.
The kid opens up the present and it's Mein Kampf. And the German grandpa or whatever is like, what? He said he wanted Mein Kampf. He's like, no, Minecraft, Dad, Minecraft.
So Jack Black opened that Ozzy Osbourne concert. He was the opening act.
Yes, apparently he was in a band with
children.
Tom Morello's son, I think.
Yeah, with children.
With children, kids.
Right. So was the first song Mr. Crowley?
I don't know that. I didn't see it.
Well, I do know. I'm pretty sure that Ozzy in his set also played Mr. Crowley.
He did. They both did.
So it bookended the entire event.
Yeah. Because it's the Blizzard of Oz, right? I mean, this is
Ozzy Oz. And so, and what did I find? It was well, I don't want to say that because I don't actually remember, but that's crazy. I mean, that's just...
Dude, I have to interject here that Mike Frank in the comments read my mind. He says Jim Morrison died the same day his dad decommissioned the I forgot how you pronounce this, Bonhomme, the biggest warship in the Gulf of Tonkin, right? So he was going against orders because it was a false flag, and he called it. So like when it was 6 a.m. July 3rd, 1971 in Paris, it was 9 p.m. on July 2nd, 1971 in California. But the whole thing, what happened, the timing of that, and for me, I'm thinking July 3rd. It's funny, Tom Cruise, who was in Born on the 4th of July, Bill Harford, right? He was born on July 3rd. I don't know what year. 62. He's in Born on the 4th of July. It's July 3rd. Like I'm thinking the end of The Shining, evil reincarnation cycle. Like I could go to a lot of directions with this stuff, but there's something really weird about John Lennon's death day being Jim Morrison's birthday. James and John are the two disciples asking to be at the right and left hand of Jesus at his throne in the gospel. James and John, John Lennon, James
and Julian
Morrison,
Assange was born on the
and
day that
Julian
Jim
Assange
Morrison
and
died.
Julian Lennon. Yeah, that's
Right.
crazy. Yeah.
So John Lennon said they were more famous than Jesus, right? And
Yeah,
then Jim
John
Morrison,
Lennon communicated that the reason why he said that. Oh, you got something, Bill. I'm sorry.
no, I mean,
hitting the gavel. No, he's.
I get it, but then
got something.
Jim Morrison also used to pose like this on stage a lot.
Absolutely. But and also he did a whole thing with the 4 directions in every show and would separate out the season songs like Winter Lady, like the Waterfall. Like he did the seasons laid out. It's like a whole crazy thing. But no, I just wanted to say that the reason why, according to John Lennon, why he said the statement he did when pressed about it, about the rock and roll will outdo Christianity, was to do with, he said I was very impacted by this book, The Passover Plot, where Jesus fakes his death. So the whole thing of the Beatles being associated with the faking of a death, like a lot of this rumor stuff is they're responsible for. So like that's the weird thing with like if Paul gets offended about it, he's like, I'm him. You know, it's like, you know, it's you guys started this, you know, like if you by playing with these ideas. And so, you know, and the Passover Plot, the film it's a Zalman King. I don't know if you know like that Skinamax, like Red Shoe Diaries show from the 90s, you know, Zalman King, the same guy who did that show, he did it's terrible movie, but he did a Passover Plot adaptation, and it stars Donald Pleasance, who we've gone into plenty here about his repeated association with the Beatles, even being included in a Beatle collage and a Beatle album. Like, you know, like he did an album with Paul McCartney about a little mouse who's trapped outside in the snow on Christmas, and he's in the Sgt. Pepper movie. And you know, THX 1138 and how that relates to Altamont, which George Lucas filmed, and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, sorry, I'm on a tangent, but yeah, crazy stuff.
I think I lost track of what you're
Bill,
doing.
you had something to say and you had a gavel for a second. I want to know what that was.
He was
I don't know. I don't know. It was just a lighter on the table. I was smoking.
All right.
You're here.
Well, I mean, it's worth mentioning. So yesterday, Uranus moved into Gemini. So now all the outer planets have moved into masculine signs over the past 2 years.
Okay, so wait, so that was yesterday?
Yeah, that was yesterday.
And that's a long cycle. How many
That's about
years?
8 years. It'll be in
it's 8
Gemini
years.
for about 8 years. And so we're about to undergo just massive advancements in technology, especially communications technology. So we were talking about VR earlier. So now Uranus is trining Pluto in Aquarius. Like the amount of energy you have there with Neptune, the dreams of Neptune sextiling in the middle. It's wild. Like we're on the cusp of like a whole new world.
So Gemini implies a twinning or doubling, so like maybe a bifurcation, split in the timeline of technology in a way.
Well, not just technology. Every time Uranus winds up in Gemini, the US has a major redefining war. Like the Uranus and Gemini started the US, so that was the War of Independence. It came back during the Civil War, and it came back again, not at the beginning of World War II, but when the US decided to join World War II.
Oh shit.
Okay, which is really where the US became like the international main empire, right? At the close of World War II. And so now you have the potential of world war breaking out, but also the potential of civil war within the U.S. So you're talking about bifurcation. I mean, it could very well be the bifurcation of North America. It's
we're all sort of waiting for it to coalesce into one.
Well, okay, so in all the comic book movies lately, the Cube is like it's in DC and it's in Marvel
and Minecraft,
and Transformers. Yeah.
And this Fantastic Four that's coming out, maybe it has some connection to the 4 networks of television. There seems to be a reckoning with television that it's on its last legs in how that medium is used, and that they can no longer control the people through the cube. It just doesn't work anymore.
Right. Hellraiser too.
So I'm just throwing that into the mix because television really is this part of 20th century that I feel the 20th century will be dominated by how the television shaped and sculpted societal and everything that happens, and it's seemingly right in front of our faces in all these big budget movies. But I don't know. I'm just throwing that into the mix.
Well, the new medium is basically a curve. It's either going to be the curved flat screens, which technically is no longer a cube because it actually has curves on it. And then the next step beyond that would be like VR goggles, which also are going to eventually be curved, right? So that's the new.
Well, are we just talking about squaring the circle, Thomas?
Well, okay, perfect.
Straight up shape.
Well, really, part of the new medium is the fact that it's now has to be viral. It has to transmit through individual minds that continue to boost the message, right? And so one of the ways they've been working with that is AI bots, because now people don't trust large screens anymore, right? They want to get it from more minute, tons of information like nattering flies. It becomes very much more Uranus and Gemini, which is more all the people talking, all the ideas at once. What does that coalesce into? And without powerful AI, you can't control that message anymore. It's hard.
How do we relate to the 47th problem of Euclid if we were presenting those shapes as planetary squares and what you can do with a planetary square? So like I never see that like communicated. I just see the geometry and like what the 47th problem of Euclid, like I see it on a certain level being presented even on like Freemasonic websites, but I never see it like communicated on top of it with encoding those planetary squares that are correspondent to those grids. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Isn't that the Pythagorean theorem?
Yes. I'm talking about the Pythagorean theorem. Yes, absolutely.
Of the triangle? Like I'm not sure exactly.
Well, the three squares when aligned forms the triangle, and you can prove the Pythagorean.
Yes, the triangles in the
square
yeah.
Square on either side added together are the square of the hypotenuse.
Yeah,
right.
The mother, father, God creating the child, which is equal to both of them together.
Right. So I've been sharing this like somebody asked for it, and I actually tracked it down where there's this like Protestant guy. It's irrelevant, but he was Protestant. He did this presentation showing tricks that you can do with the planetary squares that I haven't seen elsewhere, but they're recreatable. And it's undeniable. And it's kind of hard for people to follow it because he's doing a thing where he's twisting it into a cylinder and then he's going along how they meet each other. And he's like, oh, well, you can't go here, so you go here. But if you actually follow the particulars around what he's doing as he keeps shifting it, it actually does follow. Like, it's not like, I think the average, if you don't work it out for yourself and like really like pay attention, you just think, oh, he's just cheating. But no, he's showing you any which way you go, you can create these steps. And he's basically creating a 3-dimensional spiral, but it's like, it's already there. Like it's proof, in my opinion, that we discovered math and that we didn't invent it, because you can see it's a basic arithmetic. And he's like basically like showing you this 3-dimensional spiral that's encoded into the planetary squares. Not only that, but it gets insane when you see how each square meets the other. And I think it's what the story of the Tower of Babel is all about, the way that it's represented, where it's language, because language is math. And so it shows you like how the earliest math was actually the most advanced even in the midst of its simplicity. So you have this like insane profundity in the earliest mathematics that we find on the planet from ancient Sumer. And I'm just like, I wonder about how that might encode into the 47th problem of Euclid, because I don't think the 47th problem of Euclid is actually solved completely on those Freemasonic sources that are available to the public. I think it goes deeper, and it has to do with the tricks that you can do with those planetary squares. Because how come you don't see people showing you that all over the place, like what that random guy is demonstrating? Like, blows my mind. But yeah,
you trunk the 47th problem of Euclid.
So there you go, and that's the Maga Maha Gematria, right?
And
we worked that out before.
I gotta share this about the 47th problem of Euclid is that like it's 3, 5, and 7, I believe, is the baseline. 3, 5, 7.
Fibonacci.
357.
Actually,
if you turn that into time, 3 minutes and 57 seconds is 237 seconds. And 47 is 23 away from 70. So, and 357 has other properties too. Like it's the fact it's 357 minus 153 minus 150. So it's 2 1/3 of 153. So there's all these weird little hidden Easter eggs, I would call them, in these
in that book from William
theories.
Sterling, The Canon, abbreviating the title as The Canon, doesn't he go off about 153 throughout the book? I feel like that was one of
I
his
would love to read it if he does.
I think it has to do. Oh, that's you haven't read the dude. That's as up your alley as you can possibly get. I don't know if there's another book I'd recommend more
Which
highly.
one? What's it called again?
It's abbreviated as The Canon. It's got a really long title, kind of like that one book about the Illuminati from the 1700s. But yeah, no, it's William Sterling. It's called The Canon, and he talks about the Holy Oblation, and the story went that he was killed for writing it, but I don't know how true that is. But yeah, he was like a high-level Freemason, and he just like unloaded all these like super Masonic secrets into this book, and it's kind of a must-read for people who are into mathematics and gematria and geometry stuff. Yeah.
Well, I know that like Kenneth Grant had a line in his book, one of his books, I think Outer Gateways maybe, where he's just like, and this one equals 153, and 153 is one of the most mysterious of all numbers. And
I think your head might explode, Alex, if you read The Canon by William Sterling.
Wasn't 153 is the amount of weeks in a Saturn return, right, Alex?
No, it's not, but it is the square root of 153 is the number of lunar cycles in a year. Which is 12.37.
What was the number?
Like the timing of the song "Time" from Pink Floyd related to Saturn in a very specific way.
Well, it's seven. It's a 7/4 time signature.
Is that what it? Yeah, thank you.
So 7 leads to a measure. And
no, okay. No, it was 237 is the amount of months in a Saturn return, right? I'm trying to
remember. Time is in 7/4 time signature?
Yeah. No. Money is.
Money is?
Sorry.
Money.
Yeah, money. Not
right.
And so
it's
what's the date?
Count. Yeah.
What's the date in The Shining? Is 7/4?
Yeah, 7/4.
In the gold room, which is the money room.
Right.
And 7, the money. So this was Mark Leclerc's great observation 9/11, which was that the flight 175. What is the meaning of 175? Well, what is 7 divided by 4? 1.75, which means that flight 175 was the money shot, which was the money shot because it was the one that everyone saw. It was the plane that
was the one.
The money shot.
The money shot.
God. And so, like, that's the thing with The Shining with the gold room is that you have the gold room and then you have that green bathroom in room 237. It's kind of like related to the yellow brick road leading to the Emerald City, you know? And the way it's like, I touched her thigh and death smiled. It's just like showing you like birth, growth, decay, and death, how it's actually like, because the whole thing is, in Kubrick's own words, an evil reincarnation cycle, right? So it's like,
and Jack is sitting at the bar in the gold room when
everything kind of comes down to that conversation that Stephen King recounts of his first interaction with Kubrick when he told him that he wanted to adapt his book, and he said he saw it as a very positive story. And Stephen King is like, "What's positive about it?" And he goes, "Well, it asserts that there's an afterlife, right?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I guess." And he's like, "Well, anything other than nothing, isn't that positive? Even if it's like an evil reincarnation cycle." Kubrick's like, "No, it's something else, right? Like it continues, you know?" Oh God.
Such a logical man.
In the book The Art of Memory by Frances Yates, she discusses the history of mnemonic devices used in the past to strengthen people's memories so that they can achieve the level of rhetoric. Right. And rhetoric, really, in the classical sense, is the ability to get up in front of a group of people and to speak at length such that you can convince people of your argument. Right. And in order to further this system, Giordano Bruno, developed his system with the 30 seals. And one of his claims to fame is that his memory powers, his powers of rhetoric, were so advanced at that time that he could walk into any room and command everybody's attention, become actually the center of the universe.
That's a cult leader thing. But
and Bruno obviously burned at the stake. But at that time, there was a big debate between different schools of education. There was the square school and there was the round school. And Bruno was a big proponent of the round, where the established elites were always pushing the square. And I can't really go in depth of it because I've forgotten most of it. But with the sphere and the cube right now, there definitely seems to be some. You have the square Kaaba in Mecca, right? And then you have in Las Vegas, you have the sphere doing something like in the sphere, you go into it and it projects into you. In the cube, everyone is outside of it, circling it, almost like a battery.
Totally.
In New York, the Ground Zero Memorial is basically an inverse, a sunken cube. Like it's a hole, but it's a square.
Right,
hole.
they did an external one too, which looks just like the Hellraiser cube, right? For the art center that they have at Ground Zero, or was that just planned and they never actually executed it?
I'm not sure, but I was also thinking of the fact that Trump announced that they're going to be having the octagon at the White House, essentially.
Right. I know. So, I saw the symbolism of that,
which is sort of like Las Vegas. I mean, on the octagon came from Las Vegas, so it's
right.
Like Las Vegas being translated to DC.
The Sky is Falling remake. What is it, Chicken Little? And it's like he's like, it looked like that, and he points at the stop sign. You know, it's like it's something. Oh my God! Oh, I just want to mention that we did a Synctank this Sunday. And I was going off about the 846 thing, where it's like they had all those 846 never forget because the first plane hit the first tower at 8:46 a.m. And so that was like a slogan that went along with the stuff surrounding 9/11. But then you also had 8:46 seconds for George Floyd. Dark side of the moon, but like, and breathe, I can't breathe, dark side of the moon, you get it? But anyway, that they had this 846 thing with him too, so it's like never forget in each case, right? And there was even ceremonial stuff that happened where people did silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds for George Floyd and all this stuff. It's like a repeated thing, but it wasn't even really 8 minutes and 46 seconds exactly, but they wanted it to be that number for symbolic purposes. What was the symbolism? So the thing I failed to mention on Sunday is that if you look up the biblical Hebrew gematria for 846, there's only one word in biblical Hebrew that amounts to that, and it's the Hebrew that translates to kill. So in the entire biblical Hebrew language, only one word amounts to 846, and it literally means to kill. I'd have to look up. I did a recent tweet, or I retweeted an old tweet of mine that has the screenshot from Hendrix, that like the kind of the best traditional Hebrew gematria website stuff. But yeah, no, it's just there's no other example. Like, that's insane.
What's the biggest protest movement right now that they're trying to cobble together is the No Kings. No Kings. Yeah. Has anyone gone down a king kill, no kings kind of?
Okay. Has anyone? Oh, you betcha, man. I've been tripping out on it, dude. And the whole thing with like Sheepdog Bernie being at the helm of that whole deal, and like his interaction that he just had with Joe Rogan's show, where he left an hour early, and the particular things that he was pressing him on regarding that, like, it's the word. Like, are they trying to have bad optics? Like, what are they thinking? I guess it doesn't matter. They just don't care.
Because if King Kill is sort of the organic nature of how empires work, it's like the forest fire that you need that cleanses so that you can continually move.
It's a non-evil reincarnation cycle.
There's no other better representation of the perversion of the King Kill than Biden, right? You had this decrepit old man who should have been replaced a long time ago. The natural organic process is to eliminate.
Yeah, but he seemed like he was the fool on the throne that was meant to be disposed of.
He wasn't even. We had like what, 10 different people being president behind the scenes while he's just there with people whispering in his ear like "Return of the King."
But they put him on so they did the first thing with Trump, and they got COVID out, and then they removed Trump and they put this guy on for the Great American Eclipse, right? Which portends the death of kings, and that was an old ritual they would do, is put a fool on the throne. And then, for really bad omens. And now we have Pluto opposing Leo, the sign of kings. The last time it was there, we had the French Revolution. Well,
if we have a true uniparty system, right, and Biden was the leader of the uniparty, And if the natural progression of things is that king of the uniparty needs to go for the people to continue to thrive, then the bullet that was meant for Trump seemingly would be, we're taking out the rightful contender for the throne. Like Trump is the person coming in to eliminate the king, but they missed. I don't know.
Well, actually, there's a tie in here because I firmly believe that the King Kill 33 ritual is like the most basic version of it. So if you want to be like, oh, JFK, they literally kill the king, and but the I was gonna say Alex Jones, the Trump and the Biden. If you look at what actually happened, someone takes a shot at Trump and it misses allegedly. I still think that it hit, and we just haven't seen the real footage. But when he gets hit by the bullet and he survives, but then Joe Biden uses this like huge new media story to be like, oh, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and kind of step down. We're not announcing a new president, but I'm going to step down. Like it was, and I'm not saying that they just happen near each other. Literally, they said, oh my God, this is the chance that Joe Biden can announce that he's stepping down, and it won't become the biggest news story for the next month. The biggest news story is already right here. So in this version, there's like a proxy king kill ritual where Trump takes the assassination attempt, but Biden's the one that loses the power.
Right.
It was bulletproof, literally, like a shrapnel.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the word.
Ricochet.
Ricochet, that's the word.
They did a thing recently because you had who's the journalist that came out with the book where despite him pushing the lies around Biden's state, he comes out with the book that's basically like a confessional of all the things that we actually knew about Biden's state when they claimed not to at the White House. Who's this guy's name? You know what I'm talking about?
Jake Tapper.
Thank you. So he comes out with that book, and they kept announcing it on CNN, like, oh, he's releasing this. He's like plugging his book repeatedly on CNN, even using the same words every time. And then the news breaks that Biden has cancer. Oh, he's got a, and then it was like the whole energetic shifted in a day to you have to be really sensitive about Biden now. It's like,
and his stutter, and the stutter, which was a speech impediment, right?
It used to be, yeah, exactly. It used to be when I would like call out stuff about like shit that Biden said, and the people would be like, "You got to be more sensitive about his stutter," and like come at me about that. Like, did
you just do that on purpose when you said stutter?
It's stutter, but it was like I had to be sensitive to it, and it was like, dude, I'm not talking about how he's talking. I'm talking about what he's saying, and it was like it got to this point with certain people at times for a specific period that it was like there was such a defensiveness around his ability that for me to even suggest in any way that there was anything wrong with what he was literally saying, they used that like argument around like the sensitivity, which is very similar to now that you're like, but he has terminal cancer. Like you can't be more. It's like, can we just like address things as they are? Like, do we have to like? I'm sorry, like. It's indicative of a larger thing taking place where we be in being so sensitive, you can't address realities. So it's like something can be so overt, but you're like, you can't acknowledge it. And like,
didn't he have prostate cancer?
Yeah.
And isn't a prostate like a sphere, like a stone?
That's interesting.
I don't know.
Where are you going with this? Yeah.
I don't want to think about Joe Biden's prostate, guys.
What's that?
I don't want to think about Joe Biden's prostate.
Apostate?
I have something that relates to the No Kings thing. No Kings Day was June 14th, was Donald Trump's birthday.
That's right.
And I think
coincidence.
I was trying to get on this show to talk about this stuff when it happened, but I just can now bring it up because, okay, on No King's Day was actually King Charles was exactly as old as Ozzy Osbourne was the other day, 666 times 6 weeks. So no kings, King Charles, yeah. And also on the same day, Adolf Hitler, the deceased Adolf Hitler, would have been 1776 times 4 weeks. Yeah, allegedly deceased. So maybe he's 1776 times 4 weeks old on No King's Day. when King Charles is 666 times 6 weeks old. So that's
Weren't
weird.
how many of these guys, I forget it was King Charles, but a lot of them were either born in the solstice or the equinox, or during eclipses.
Well,
breaks during the eclipse, like
eclipses.
royal.
Eclipses up and down for royalty. And also the House of Windsor is very Scorpio coded. There's a lot of Scorpio placements.
Charles is born the day before me, or 2 days before me.
Yeah. But you know who did a? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just also no King's Day. I just looked it up. It was June 14th. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the day that the moon met Pluto in Aquarius, opposing Leo, the sign of Kings.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Subliminal synchrosphere. Speaking of which, I keep meaning to do this thing, Alex, where I want to have everything in a hard drive that he ever did if it's accessible through Wayback Machine. But he's this guy from Dublin, and he had the best blog, the most like synchronicity, like profound blog I think I've ever seen. He went by Horse Lover Fat, and he's the first place that I heard about this whole thing with the royals having like this like all these births being like through time, just like you're like, I mean, I guess it makes sense, like gestation period having to do, like, you know, my sister, when her water broke with her first child, it was during a full lunar eclipse. Like, it makes sense, like gravity, like that things would happen that way.
Blood moon eclipse, isn't he?
Right, but it gets pretty ridiculous with the royals too. I think statistically there's another level to it. Like, it feels like this is some moonchild plan shit right here.
But that is traditional astrology, is that it's the birth and death of kings or the eclipses. Like, that's always, it's the two luminaries or your king and your queen, and when they eclipse each other, there's a death or a birth. Like, it's literally what they've been saying for thousands of years, right? Going back to Babylonia.
Yeah. The dragon swallowing the sun or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like all this alchemical significance. Yeah.
So the question is, I mean, is it that they are actually ritually inducing births at this time, or is it just that's what happens?
It's like a goddamn quality sync film. I'm like, the line seems to be in the sand. I'm not really sure what we're dealing with here, you know.
Well, what about the King of Kings? Are we saying we don't even want the King of Kings? You know what I mean?
Well,
subtext to that.
Yeah, no philosopher kings either.
Yeah,
I mean, don't forget the sun disappeared from the sky when Jesus was crucified, right?
So yeah, they do say that, you know. But I think we have somebody like Greg Braden would argue that at one time Greg Braden would have argued that was the Earth moving in the opposite direction before it changed course again, which happens every so many years, you know. But we can tell by the photon belt, you know. It's like it's got to be awkward to be Greg Braden. It's got to be as awkward to be Greg Braden as it does to be Kash Patel right now. You're like, okay, yeah, no, I know I said a lot of stuff really with a lot of certainty, but
Kash
sorry, guys,
used to be king,
crow over
right?
here. What?
Cash used to be king, and no one carries cash anymore.
Good point. Yeah.
Digital cash. Cash, I got to bring this up. Okay, so Kash Patel, I said on 27th or 28th, he's going to be 2,370 weeks old. Midpoint of that, I just looked it up, and it's the release of the James Bond movie Die Another Day, which happens to have Michael Madsen in it.
Okay.
And also Halle Berry. Halle Berry. So John Cleese plays Q. Die Another Day. I haven't even seen this one. Yeah, because Bond has Q, right? Bond, the Q from Bond. So I don't know what exactly to get from that, but Die Another Day, Epstein.
Whenever Q comes up, I always have to mention that Q was based on Stanley P. Lavelle, who was the actual CIA inventor guy that made wacky, you know, like exploding footballs and like napalm bats and like all this stuff. That's
guns,
like Q comes from P. Yeah.
I'm gonna. Of course, it's a Stanley. I'm gonna have to look at his birthday.
So Q's whole thing was that John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to come back. By the way, John F. Kennedy Jr.
No, he never said that. Q never said that.
Q never actually said that. Oh, people took it that way. They were decoding Q.
Like,
excuse me.
That was
pardon
I don't know what
me. And when discussing Q, you have to be very careful between what actually Q said and what people read into it. So I apologize for that. But I just wanted to say that was where they went with it, right? Where it's like obviously. But my thing is like, are they not talking about RFK Jr.? Like we're saying JFK Jr., he died the day and year of the release of Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. So like but I'm just saying, like, it would make more sense for it to be where RFK Jr. goes from here than it would be the return of John F. Kennedy Jr., which would really, I mean, that
And
would
he
be
is kind of
great.
returning because they're doing a TV show, American romance story about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. So they're going to be like reincarnated on screen soon.
Okay,
Well,
totally.
even RFK sounds like Return of the King too.
Right.
Yeah, he's Aragorn, right?
Totally.
And Biden was, I forget the king's name, who was sick, who they kept on the throne during his illness.
King Theoden.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just
Well, he was
here. I just
infected by Saruman's evil.
I need to qualify this, and that's relatable to Plantar, or whatever they call it. You know, what you just said with the scene. You know, but I just want to say, like, if I'm going to be saying any of this at all, bringing in RFK Jr., I want to say, like, consider it from if you're actually entertaining that Q is a you know, has some intelligence behind it, you know, connection to intelligence networks. With what happened with Kennedy, like, just assume that it's like the wizard in the Wizard of Oz, where it's not real magic, but they have a sense of things. They're taking all these things into account. Like, you don't know ultimately have certainty on how things will play out. If you go back and somebody knew that, hey, RFK Jr. is going to be entering on the scene, he's going to be running, and you don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to be playing out, it would make sense for them to encode that in certain ways to be like, nudge, nudge, this is going to be a big variable. And like, I got ridiculed a lot by even saying that RFK Jr. was any variable at all when he first showed up and he was running. People were like, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And I'm like, no, I think this is going, he's not going away anytime soon. So like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just saying, like, I had reason to think that we got a Kennedy on the scene. Like, and we're treating it like this is just his own family doesn't support him. Yeah, 6 out of 105 are like Biden supporters instead, who also are on Biden's payroll. So like, what the hell anyway? Like, it's just, I don't know. I just wanted to emphasize there, like, I could entertain the idea that whatever Q was, that there was access to certain information and that they could be encoding that, and it would make sense for them to be in like, hey, there's another variable here. If you're talking prior knowledge in 2016 that there will be a Kennedy on the scene, they don't necessarily know exactly how that's going to play out or the levels of lawfare that'll go against him or whatever. It was a significant deal, and it continues to be right now with what's happening with HHS. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
We love our Kennedy, who was born the same day as January 17th. He's got that birthday with Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's my favorite meme idea in the world, is just like freaking Trump just taking off. It turns out he's freaking been Andy Kaufman this whole time. And it's just like, it's an extension of Tony Clifton, you know, like, it's just a Tony Clifton guy who's just been running with this, you know. Yeah. I don't know. That would be the biggest, like, you know, Scooby-Doo ending you could ever. Yeah.
2 years, 3 days, 7 months from Trump to Andy Kaufman's birthday.
Andy Kaufman is actually an extremely underestimated significant character in the whole world play, because like that idea of that show idea that he had, where it's like you're you know, it's like Outer Limits beginning, like, don't try to adjust your set or whatever, but you'd have these like defects and then people reacting to it, and he's like no, that's part of it. It's kind of like, I'd say it's like Tim and Eric before Tim and Eric, but just beyond that, like from a McLuhan place, like if you just consider like what he's doing and how he's playing with this thing that people are looking to just be this very boxed in kind of like, this is just the way things work. And then he's like, well, what if you just showed them how manipulative the thing can be, like that level of manipulation. It was like gonna, you know, like someone with a directive to open people's minds. Also, talk about the direction that things went with the trans insanity. Look at Andy Kaufman, women's world wrestling champion.
Oh, intergender wrestling champion.
Intergender, yeah, because
totally
like and like it was like the guy, like, you talk about people with like a, you know, all-seeing crystal ball eye. Like the guy was just so ahead of the game. It's like, do people even like I think Jim Carrey gets it, you know, like he's just like, oh my God, this is the guy. Like, and you know, say what you will, I mean, his birthday being the same, that's pretty nuts, but like, who can like like if you look at all the, like, I'd say Val Kilmer, not the movie itself for The Doors, but like Val Kilmer did one of the best jobs ever of playing somebody else who he isn't. Jim Carrey's right up there too, man. And if you watch that documentary on the behind the scenes of the Man on the Moon, it's freaking nuts. Also, I could go off a million days about the significance of Toy Story and The Shining and REM's Man on the Moon, going back and forth between the cowboy and the astronaut, just like Toy Story, and the book The Uncanny from Freud, that was Stanley Kubrick's argument for doing The Shining in the first place, being completely the entire basis of Toy Story, which would explain all the 237s and the floor pattern. And
apparently in the new Pixar movie, Elio, the new Pixar movie, there's a 237 in like the first scene on a plane, I guess.
Of course.
So, Pixar loves, they just continually do that. I don't know. I've got I'm working really hard to finish an article about the Apollo Jim Carrey connections. And I went through back to his first roles early in all through the 80s before he was famous.
TV roles?
The made for TV roles. There's a couple made for TV ones, and then there's a couple movies that he made. Actually, he made a movie with Richard Lester, who was the guy who made Help and Hard Day's Night and probably various other things, but called Finders Keepers. And I'm just like, I don't want to give any of it away, really, but like,
do you touch on the Apollo Theater, which is the most famous like black theater where predominantly African American performers would go up and entertain? And Jim Carrey's first big breakthrough was in Living Color,
right?
Which was essentially the Apollo Theater moved up to television.
Was the Apollo Theater, is this in New York or what's
in Harlem, I would believe?
Because there's a bunch of different Apollo theaters.
Well, Live at the Apollo. Remember the Sandman? If you're bombing, he comes on and sweeps you off stage.
Okay. Live at the, well, yeah, no, I'm for sure. There's a lot of different Apollo connections.
And freaking Live at the Improv, it always had the bricks behind them for Kubrick. Come on. No, I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Carrey's the Rubber Face. Like, he's got that movie Rubber Face, which was not actually called Rubber Face until after he got sort of well known, but I don't know. But anyway, watch for that. I'm just trying to say.
What's the after school specials? What was his deal? Like his earliest stuff was like after school specials.
Well, the first one's called like Introducing Janet, and it's just like about this girl comedian, and he's her friend, and he's trying to help her out, but he becomes the star of the show because he's so good. But he's like on stage. There's like, he's wearing the Clockwork Orange hat. There's Wizard of Oz references in it. And and it goes for, and I mean, the fact that he was in Living Color, he's the fish out of the water guy, the white guy amongst the black set. He does that again in Me, Myself, and Irene with the Farley brothers, where he adopted these three black sons.
No, didn't he think he thought they were his kids, right?
Maybe, yeah. I don't
never even addressed in the movie. Those are just his kids.
The Farley brothers
treated them as though, because he was in denial. He raised them as his own because he had all this repression, which is the basis of him getting tweaked out in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. So then Jim Carrey also, he's in this thing called Copper Mountain, which is actually a Canadian television advertisement for Club Med, and the first scene is him and his buddy. It's Colorado. They're driving up the road to the resort, and they're talking about, they mention Jack Nicholson, they mention him having multiple personalities. They're like, how many people do you have up in there with you, talking to Jim Carrey? So it's like this stuff is laid out from the beginning, right, in his career, and there's more to it. But
yeah, a lot of the early stuff from the Sinkhole, the blog that Jake Kotza and all these Jim Sanders and Richard Aerosmith and even Mark Leclerc for a minute, and then he was just too edgy for those guys. But like, if you look at their early stuff, like there's a lot of focus on Jim Carrey as the green man archetype and the fool, and how like it was encoded to everything. But they were like looking at, and the
And that's the
arguments
moon,
are
isn't it? Doesn't that
so
make it the
strong.
moon?
It's ridiculous, but it does. I've gone down this rabbit hole that you're describing. I got like a torrent of like every Jim Carrey movie because I tried to play every Jim Carrey movie that had ever been made all at the same time, and like I measured out the screens. And in order to do that, like if I tried to put them all and do it all at once, like it was too much for it to encode. Like the program couldn't handle it. So I was doing them in sections, like 3 at a time. And then at a certain point, I just gave up. But somewhere in my hard drives, there's like attempts at like to put every Jim Carrey movie
I was
ever
thinking
made.
about doing Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask all at once because they came out the same year, and that's the 3 movies that launched him into superstardom.
Yeah.
I have on the
He's
website.
He's also said that every movie he was ever in replicated what was happening in his life at that point. So he was like living those movies on another level, and now I don't have a personality because he became his character so much.
Yeah, I have. It's kind of just for fun. It's not like a crazy solid sync or anything like that. But on the website, I do have Green Day with the 3 movies that he did in 1 year, which was Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura.
Right.
But it was kind of crazy that those all came out in 1 year. Like that was like the summer of Jim Carrey.
Just figure out, throw this out one more time because I still haven't found it. If anyone out there listening can track the Jim Carrey appearance on Oprah's show where he's talking about the Truman Show. It doesn't exist anymore. I remember seeing it. It's one of the most batshit crazy interviews I've ever seen in my life, and it doesn't exist on the internet in any form. But shortly before or after the release of the Truman Show, if anyone can find Jim Carrey on Oprah, that's some shit, man. I mean, he's literally freaking out and saying Illuminati, Illuminati, Illuminati. I mean, it's bonkers, like totally off the fucking wall.
Huh.
What an interesting, I don't know, character. Another, like in Finders Keepers is really interesting, which is the Richard Lester movie. He plays a dead man. Like his character is dead, but not. And he's the first way you're introduced to his character is he's a body in a coffin being transported, a soldier. But then you find out they open it up and it's shot like the Monolith with this big. And it's got an American flag on it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that particular one.
Holy cow! I'm going to lose my mind.
Of course, Will.
I'm going to lose
after the 2-hour mark, but I mean,
welcome to Mark 2.
Will. I knew I'd draw you in.
Somebody like that's already been done. You guys are talking about Jim Carrey. Like certain movies of his have already been overlapped by John Kidd from The Sinkhole.
Okay.
Shout out John Kidd.
They have that's on my shit. Hold on. All right. Well, wait, there's another thing. First, I got all of this list. I've been listening to you guys. You guys had a great show. I don't want to be too crotchety, but first off, Paranoid American.
Also, William Morgan is Jeremy Davis in Twister, just for anyone who didn't.
In case you were wondering, thank you.
That's no moon, that's a space station. Listen, Paranoid Android, or American, Paranoid Android, Paranoid American. The whole thing, and this is very important because I use it over and over because nobody knows this, but the whole track to Waco having those speakers outside, that has to do with the band Iron Butterfly. They called the FBI and offered to go down to Waco to play Inagata de Vida over and over for 24 hours because that was the music that was used to get, what was it, Noriega or whatever out of Panama. Did
they play for 24 hours or do they just allow their music to be played for 24 hours?
They allowed their music to be played for 24 hours. So both the individuals that were involved with that and Iron Butterfly called Waco because those two events are a lot closer than you think they are. So both the whoever was involved with the thing called them, and then later on Iron Butterfly called them. And Iron Butterfly offered to come and play live for 24 hours. Before they did that, David Koresh started playing. He hooked up his own system and started playing his own music out to them. So after that, they kind of used it in retaliation against that. And the first thing that they started playing was like Nancy Sinatra's These Boots Are Made for Walking. That didn't work because they yelled back requesting Def Leppard.
It was a different year. It would have been, do you believe in life after love?
Well, it was like These Boots Are Made for Walking. They were trying to get them to come out. They were trying to make them walk.
Right, but then they just went to a place of just trying to annoy people out. which is really terrible for the hostages.
It's quite sadistic. Like there was, like he said, I think Thomas mentioned the rabbits dying. That is true. There's a whole bunch of stuff though. It was like you can actually hear it if you listen to some of the audio on the tapes. Like you can hear the stuff going on in the background while it's nighttime and they're trying to sleep. They're also blaring it with like lights and stuff.
Yeah,
it was very torturous. It was crazy. What happened was crazy. But there's other things that I wanted to like debate here, man.
Beyond Waco? Do you just have the Waco tidbit?
Well, I think that was important because Paranoid American has obviously been doing his research, and I would like to encourage his research further with Waco. But I used that iron butterfly because I went into this group of like survivors and researchers, and I was like, you guys don't know shit what you're talking about. And until somebody brings me iron butterfly, until you show me where that's in the papers, I don't think that you've even read those papers. And
is this the iron butterfly effect?
What's that?
Is this the iron butterfly effect? Is this some like high level shit?
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. I like that term.
But that's got to be the name of our Waco comic, Will.
The cover of Pink Floyd's Metal encodes a butterfly if you mirror it against itself. You see, it's a perfect butterfly. You've probably seen that. I think we had that an old Always Record with Mark LeClaire. That was the image for it, was metal mirrored against itself. If you unfold the whole thing.
That was the other thing. Hey, I was in the sinkhole, pal. And I'm the one who invited Mark LeClaire to the sinkhole.
Absolutely. But I can't name I guess I could name everybody. But when I think of you, I think of a few shots to Shaman because you had your own blog that was amazing. So,
Also touchy about our reputations here.
I know, right? Well, it's classic sync stuff. You're like, I was there first at Plymouth Rock.
No, but it's important because, like,
I didn't land on Synctank. Synctank landed on me.
Exactly.
I gotta go here soon. So
come now.
If you wanna,
Will jumps on like he's got another 2 hours ahead of him.
Well, he can take my place. He can just...
I'm wound up.
Yeah, I gotta go too.
All right.
But if you have anything directly you want to debate with me right this second, go.
Jack Black. I've done videos and I've got a lot of research on Jack Black. I see that Alex, you're into black right now.
Yeah. Into black.
He's got some weird stuff going on with the devil, like over and over. Like even his name implies it. I fed black into AI and have had it write scripts because it can catch on to the themes real quick. The most obvious and the one that my own kids looked at me like when we were in the theater, they're like, what the hell, was the King Kong, Gulliver's Travels, and then in Goosebumps where the gnomes tie him down, Echo the Lilliputans tying him down, and then in King Kong he ties King Kong down.
Yeah, but do you know that's about... That's explained in Norman O'Brown's Life Against Death is the psychoanalytic meaning of that scene in Gulliver's Travels. And that was one of the most influential books on Jim Morrison, by the way. And Jim Morrison referenced it in a multitude of ways throughout his music.
Do you remember what the thing was? Like, because that's interesting.
I'll pull it out for you. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Is called Life Against Death by Norman O'Brown. He was a professor at UC Santa Cruz. And
I tried to get the AI to like label importance by how many times a certain situation happens to an actor over and over.
Yeah,
because I think that one with Jack Black really illustrates it really well. How it was like he's the guy who's making the movie, right? Because that's another part of his. He's also in Cable Guy, and he's seen with the number 42 behind him because the room number is 420, which is kind of important. Anybody who wants to use that for like hot tub time machine,
the lightning too throughout. How that
deal.
With Christopher Lloyd as well throughout his.
Well, the interaction between Jack Black and Jim Carrey in the Cable Guy is really important. Like
they mimic each other.
The basketball game. It's a launch because he uses Jack Black as the launch pad to dunk the ball, and so that makes it a rocket kind of.
I see. Well, see, the whole thing about Cable Guy is it kind of echoes what happens in the whole Batman series with Jim Carrey. How in that one he's using people's dreams or whatever to create like television. And then you have like the Truman Show where he is television, and then Cable Guy where he's like raised by television.
Right.
But that
He's
echoes in
basically-
Black
and
too, because Black is the movie producer in King Kong, and Gulliver's Travels. He tells all of the Lilliputans by making them reenact movies that's his life. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's like mimics, and that's going on in Cable Guy too. And so there's like this theme where it's like Jim Carrey has that idea, Jack Black has that idea, and they appear together when that idea is like there. Does that make sense? So there's not only like the thing happening with the actors, it's how those actors interact with each other when they're together. And you can predict what the subject matter is going to, because we've already done this. We've already done this like for a decade, bro. It's a true thing. Sync is a true thing. If you pay attention to the themes in one actor's like web and the themes in another actor's web, when they come together, those themes are amplified.
Yeah.
True.
Sure.
It's very, very obvious with Black and with Carrey, which you guys were talking
Jack
about.
Black also, I think this relates to him in Minecraft too, because like that's all about he's this dude who comes into this world and he starts creating.
You create your own world in Minecraft, right? There's a very Truman Show-esque idea about those who were raised with Minecraft.
Yeah.
That's your Truman world, right?
Sure. Absolutely. And it's a dome. It's a dome. It's a spherish. The Truman Dome.
Mm-hmm. I never thought about that.
Encoded with 9 because it starts with 10. Isn't it 10919? Day 10919. It starts with. I don't know, but I gotta go because this room's really hot. I'm really hungry, and I gotta just.
Well, thank you guys for like just spending a couple of minutes with me. I had to get some stuff out on the table. You guys had a great show tonight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We need Will to always pop in at an episode and rant about Waco. I feel like that as like a recurring bit would just be perfect.
That's really interesting, guys. But how does it relate to Waco?
He brought it up. I was just
you know what? No, I'm not.
Would like to help with research of Waco. You will get paid. Just hit me up.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. No. It always follows. Like the logic follows. It's just like it's. That's your angle on a lot of it, you know. And that
was planned.
It's central. It is central.
That's the joke in the middle of the meta egg, guys.
The yolk.
The yolk, yeah.
The joke.
They can't take a yolk.
Joke at the middle of every.
Right. Yeah. You know, he's the Eggman because he gets laid. That's the point, and that's why it was with Yoko Ono. You know.
Oh, wasn't Epstein also the Eggman?
Well, that's what made him get like he was unperturbed. It didn't matter what they asked him about rape and all this terrible stuff. Oh, I shouldn't say that on YouTube. I'll get in trouble. But he was all unperturbed by all these things. But as soon as they mentioned the shape of his wang, he had to get up and pace around the room. I don't know if you've seen that Epstein footage where he just loses it because they're making fun of the shape of what he's got down there. Oh, that was awkward. That's one of the most awkward things I've ever seen. Like, wow, you want to see somebody triggered, dude? Look at Epstein when you bring up this shape of his dick.
Well,
I thought it was the size that was what really tortured him.
He says the end of it is like an egg. He equates it with an egg. He goes, "You got a weird shaped thing," because the FBI guy was like, "I saw it."
Talking about that. David's right. There's a lot of people asking certain questions about, because they did the same thing to Clinton because Clinton's hung like a cashew.
Right. Clinton's hung like a cashew, and Epstein's got a weird egg thing going on, and it also goes off
kosher
to the side.
pickle.
It's not. It doesn't go straight up. It's crooked, like he's been screwing around corners, and he's very, very sensitive about it. You know, like, and you can. It's very like connected to like the Napoleon complex, where you can see he's overcompensating in these different ways because he's very self-conscious about his situation down there. It's true.
Well, who isn't?
Weinstein is another similar thing because he had like a gangrene type fungal situation. Oh, bye, Alex. Sorry, I'm leaving you on that note. All right. But yeah, all the women who are with Weinstein thought that he was trans when they first saw it because they didn't know what was going on with him in that way. And so, yeah, it's definitely a phenomenon among these people that have these terrible, tendencies,
You think that was his opening move? He's like, "Don't worry, I'm trans," and they were like, "Okay,
Maybe.
this is slightly better than it started." Then, okay,
Right? Yeah, I don't know. You have to.
Do we got to go? Are we cutting off? Or can
I
we
don't
talk
have to
about-
go. I'm chilling. I don't know about you
Gouffre?
guys, but
Do you guys know who she is? April
Who?
Gouffre? Is that how you pronounce her name? So,
Who?
there's this classic picture with Prince Andrew and
yes,
Maxwell together.
Gouffre.
yeah, that's right.
Gouffre. Her name is April. Okay. I think all of this stuff I was telling my wife this is one conspiracy theory that I think I'm like open with people in an everyday setting. Because the whole Epstein stuff is so over the top that everybody's noticing. She was the one who was I think that there was the Netflix series, and at the end of the Netflix series, she accuses Dershowitz, who was the lawyer of Epstein, of having sexual encounters with him 6 times. And there was a big issue at the time about this. Alan Dershowitz and she were involved in litigation where they were suing each other because of this Netflix series.
Right.
This was one of the things that informed the public on the Epstein. The whole situation was because of this Netflix series. She, in the middle of all of this, after he committed suicide, she basically retracts her accusations against Dershowitz. They kind of like settled out of court. She said, I made a mistake. And this is realized I'm pretty sure, made millions of dollars off the Epstein thing, because she was one of the ones who got paid out by Epstein because of that photograph with her and Ghislaine or Maxwell. She's tied to that too. She's like the main thread between those two. She's dead now.
Ghislaine.
She's dead.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of this stuff with P. Diddy and everything like that, and especially what's going on with the Epstein thing, is very reliant on her death. She was hit by a speeding bus in which her daughter died. And then after her daughter's death, she basically committed suicide. Then the list comes up missing. And I'm saying that this is important because she had litigation against Dershowitz,
right,
saying that Dershowitz was on the list, basically.
Right.
Well, there is no
list. Do you get what I'm saying?
There is no list.
There is no list. Yeah.
Exactly. Once
I never, but they've argued themselves. The victims have argued themselves that the list is irrelevant. The victims have argued one by one that not everybody that flew on the freaking Lolita Express and even visited the island knew the depths of what was going on. And I have to believe those victims. And I think that there was some serious messed up stuff going on, but not everybody was privy to it. They had all kinds of reasons for having dealings with Epstein beyond him being a sex trafficker. Not this, but this is the thing though. Like, it goes beyond a list. You need to have what they did and having a documentation of that, which apparently exists. Now you have today this backpedaling of the tens of thousands of videos. It was all downloaded child porn.
You have both Elon and you have Trump, who were using the list against Democrats before the president election. So I get what you're saying, but that's just apologizing for the whole situation.
I'm not saying there isn't a list of people that committed crimes. I'm saying that the list, when there's like, we want his black book, who gives a shit who's in his black book? I want to know the list of people with the examples that we know of how they were blackmailed, not just what they were blackmailed with, but what they did because of that blackmail. And that's the thing that they can't in a million years share with the public, because then it all goes down. And I'm sure Mossad is involved. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that people have done and said based on that blackmail held against them. Like, these are blackmail cases. The P. Diddy case, the original filings for that indicated that. I was shocked. And I shouldn't have been so shocked because sometimes I'm a bit naive or whatever. But when I saw what the actual charges were against Diddy, I knew it was going to be a sham trial from that moment forward. It's the same thing with the Russia gate crap with Trump. When I saw what the actual charges were, I was like, oh, well, they're not going to get him on that because that's not his dealings with Russia. With P. Diddy, this is about blackmail. With Epstein, this is about blackmail. They're making it about like, oh, it's just about prostitution. No, this was directed. This was a strategic thing. Like, it's so freaking obvious, and most of the public knows that. So we're just being gaslit at this point, completely. Captain Obvious over here.
Gaslighting. But that's what I'm saying. Some of our heroes are gaslighting. So you got to stop identifying with individuals as far as like, this guy's a good guy and this guy's a bad guy.
Right.
Because this is way more nuanced than that.
No, people are being, we went over this a couple days ago, or I did, but yeah, people are being drugged and made to participate in things that they might not otherwise participate in their natural way of being. And then they hold that against them for the rest of their careers and lives, and threaten their loved ones with all kinds of stuff too at the same time. Like, it's just, it's so over the top. And you have these examples. This is why I go off like about in the past, we had what happened with Polanski and what happened with Manson are very similar. We have these people who certainly aren't innocent, but the way that the trial is being directed, the prosecution is in on cover-ups. They don't want these other things to be exposed. So we're going to direct the parameters of what the charges are so as not to,
well, you know what this
other
goes
elements
back to?
Into it.
This goes back to fucking Waco.
Is that true?
Because Waco, those individuals were by the jury considered to be innocent, and the judge threw out the jury and gave them 40 years.
Yep.
Which makes no sense.
Right. Yep. Totally.
And the fact that nobody knows that is the trick. Like, there's a whole bunch of things. Like, you guys are bringing up the church committees. Like, if you look at the church committee on assassination, that was in like 78, it basically said that there was a conspiracy. It said the United States government finds that it is very probable a conspiracy to kill the president of the United States originating from New Orleans. However, the United States government is not responsible for the cover-up. And so that like trick of language is like, well, shit, they're saying that there's a fucking conspiracy. They're just saying that it's not their fault. And yet
people don't even talk about how subcommittee hearings that nobody freaking talks about. Look at the one that just happened relatively recently, a bipartisan subcommittee hearing on COVID response, where they point out all the freaking opportunism and all the crazy stuff that people did that was super corrupt all throughout COVID response. That is a House subcommittee report. You can read it. You can go online pretty easily and track it down. Yet nobody talks about it. It was never mentioned on the news. I bring it up to anybody. They're like, what? Like, I'm like, no, there's a House subcommittee report that lays it all out.
We're painted into a corner right now because like some of the things that are we know the truth about are the things that people don't talk about. And I mean, like, we're painted into a corner because of this, because like with situations with Waco, how the hell are you going to do anything with that? That's 30 years old. I'm walking into this and nobody knows about Iron Butterfly. That's scary.
The thing is that it's formulaic, and they repeat the formula.
The whole thing with Kennedy happened in 78. We're like 40 years past that, 47 years past that. And it's still, people are like, well, Trump's going to release what's going on with JFK because nobody gives a shit.
And then Trump today is like talking about
nobody gives a shit.
Yesterday or whatever it was. His reaction to the Epstein thing is like, you're still talking about that? We're still on that? Like, that's old news. I'm like, dude, I'm on Helter Skelter still, bro.
Are you friggin' kidding me? Flag on the play. This was in the last couple of days, and Trump saying stop talking about Epstein. That's a flag on the play, bro. If you've been a conspiracy theorist for as long as we've been a conspiracy theorist, that's blatant. Yeah. And there's no reason to use him as like an idol anymore. Right. Like Alex Jones within the last couple of days was like hopping on there saying, I'm going to puke, because his whole identity is nothing but the Epstein list.
Right. Totally. It's true. And why we even say the list, it just feels like another example where we set up the parameters of the investigation, even among our own independent research. Like it's like
It's just
screw like
gone.
what's happening with the FBI and whatever. And what the Q people are saying now is they're like, oh, that's because you know why he's saying all this is because it's no longer like the back to basics comment about the FBI is it's like because now it's really a military matter because they're talking about international blackmail. So the FBI, it is no longer about the FBI anymore. It goes beyond them. It's being handed to a higher investigation. I'm like, okay, maybe, but you guys, like, it just feels like this kind of like whatever it is, we're going to give some rationalization, you know?
Klaus, I got you quoted. You once said, if you're a conspiracy theorist and you still smoke, something's wrong with you. Do you deny that saying?
Oh,
that?
100%.
How
Or
is
not.
this not related to the same thing? Like when Trump gets up there and says, I can't believe you guys are still talking about Epstein. Flag on the play. Do you disagree?
I'm trying to process
Are,
that.
are those not equivalent?
No
you're a
way. Talking about
conspiracy theorist-
Epstein is the equivalent of smoking?
I
Yeah.
know it feels
Like
a bit like
ignoring
a
the
false
list.
equivalency.
If the list disappears in your mental canon, it's the same thing as going back to smoking when you're a conspiracy theorist.
I buy that. I buy that. I mean, you're talking about hypocrisy, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you're saying that something's ironic there. You can't prove irony just like synchronicity will.
Wait,
if you're
why,
looking
why,
for
wait,
go ahead.
Klaus, why were you saying that if you're a conspiracy theorist, you should stop smoking?
I think I was in a health kick, right? And we were talking about, this is actually, geez, this could open up something. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. Let's go, Bill. To the mat. Let's go.
There are more squirrels and raccoons arrested than anyone ever. And as you know, the raccoon was not associated with Israel. Keep going.
All right. So the 60-minute story on tobacco that was killed. You remember that?
Yes.
The movie with Russell Crowe where he plays Jeffrey Wigand, right? I actually just rewatched it. And so they had the evidence that smoking not only was cancerous, but they were adding additional chemicals to heighten the sensation of nicotine, and certain things that they were doing for flavor were increasing carcinogens. And they got the whistleblower. He filmed the interview with Mike Wallace in 60 Minutes. And then they got the word from the corporations, you're not releasing this interview. Right. And so coming out of Gen X, 90s, Occupy and stuff, railing against corporations, I think I was on a very high horse of saying, like, if you're against the corporations, why would you smoke? Because they're legitimately just getting you to pay exorbitant amounts of money to poison yourselves. Like, if you can't unshackle yourselves from that kind of addiction, then you're just the corporation's bitch, ultimately.
Yeah, but what about organic tobacco? So, like, I was just, reading about the neurotransmitter effects of acetylcholine associated with nicotine. And there's a whole study there. I don't think I'm even allowed to talk. I mean, we could talk about how Epstein
focus in on the additives that do a couple of things: intensify the nicotine, intensify the flavor, and also keep a cigarette burning when you're not smoking it, so that it shrinks the shelf life of the product. Like, we're talking about big tobacco, not tobacco.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. High school reunion where Janine Garofalo's invented the quick burning cigarette for the woman on the go.
They used to make cigarettes in Yugoslavia that you'd have to keep lighting because they would just go out because of paper.
Well,
now
American spirits will go out on you a lot. Yeah. Like a fucking Marlboro Light from 1995. You light that sucker and you turn your back. That shit's out.
It's saltpeter, isn't it? Isn't that saltpeter?
Yeah, it's like saltpeter, which is a tartaric acid or something like that, right?
A what acid? A tartaric?
Yeah, it's like the first American patent.
And it's funny.
It's also in conspiracy theories given to the military to keep them docile.
All right, so you guys follow Whitney Webb, right?
Yes.
All right. Have you read her 2 books, the 2 volumes?
I haven't because we've discussed this, but go on.
I'm asking, there's 4 other people here.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, shit. Sorry, guys.
I'm only 3/5 a person.
And I don't believe in books.
All right, so I don't want to get into that rabbit hole because that shit, I spent too much time in there. It's very difficult. But so if you're a conspiracy theorist and you smoke, you're basically saying, hey, I'm under the surface. I understand what they're doing to control us, but I'm still going to take their poison. So that was that comment, right?
Yeah, so you didn't mean like organic tobacco. You meant literally like the mind control cigarettes. So let's take that to where Will's trying to go. Will's
Well, no, I was going somewhere. Hold on.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, cluster.
So The Insider is the movie about Jeffrey Wigand, right? And so he found out these additional things. They killed the story. You know, Mike Wallace is the bastion of journalistic freedom. He wanted to be Walter Cronkite, right? And Al Pacino's character in that movie is the only one in the office saying, what are we doing, people? We're journalists.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
The cat, totally out of the bag. Greatest line ever. So there's this one part of that movie that fucked me up when I watched it 2 weeks ago.
Oh, shoot.
No, did he just get canned?
Wow, they cut him
Now, like,
off.
I'm gonna go watch it.
Was his phone plugged in? He's
You
talking
get
about
what I'm
phone
saying? Like, poison in, poison out. Like, how can you be a conspiracy theorist and take poison when you know it's poison just because you identify with being a smoker or some dumb shit like that? Just because you saw one too many like James Dean
It's the
movies,
smoking
you
gun.
think
Yeah.
it's cool. You gotta keep smoking.
I just want to back up his logic on that though, because that was the reason that I quit smoking cigarettes after like 15 years. Was at one point I just like spontaneously was like, damn, if these are being created by corporations that hate me and basically like I'm giving them money to keep putting forward their objectives, which are obviously completely counter to what my objectives are, in like agnostic of tobacco or nicotine as a thing, just like the corporations that were behind it. I felt like there was like this huge internal like incongruence that I just like I had to either quit smoking or I had to just accept
start
that
buying
I
like
was like
tobacco leaves from Virginia, like I did with Ian Crossland back in 2018, 2019. 2019, we were living in the Palace Theater, and there was all these like black kids who made rap music, you know. So we like were bringing them over to the Palace to record music all the time, and they like to smoke blunts, which were obviously like these blunt wraps are just like 90% chemicals.
Like
so we
White
went
Owl.
and bought like kilograms of organic Virginia tobacco, which was super cheap, and we just laid the leaves around the studio, you know, like record producers of any ethnic origin, you know. But the point is that you can definitely do something with healthy tobacco that's completely different. The same way that you're from Santa Cruz, you know what they do with the cannabis and what they're doing to the future of drugs, and you know, you got to be careful with the whole idea that the chemicals they're putting in something is the thing that you're worried about, not the original thing itself. And I think that's the truth about maybe the added. If you want to like really grasp at something, you could say like the missing Epstein footage, right? That was the one, because we talked about this. We made a joke earlier that you can't really sync the Epstein footage to any good music because there's a minute cut out of it, like the Blockbuster video cassette version of the Epstein case. You don't get to know. You know, the nude scene's gone, so we don't even know exactly what's missing.
Well, we've been told
a minute gone, right? The whole
we've
point
been
is
told why this minute's gone. Andreas, did you hear it? It just happened. We were just informed by Miss Livet or whatever her name is, that speaker, the press secretary, that it's because they changed the tapes. They have to change it out, and there's always a minute missing.
There's no fucking tapes. This is not how that works, man.
I know. I thought we were in a digital place now. What's happening? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like, hold on, like 6 week. Let's do it. 6 week security camera system. Where's it called? Right here. You get these, like, you can look it up. Like these systems here, they have a box with a terabyte in it, usually more. If you have a This is what you have at my house. So imagine what they have at a freaking Arkham Asylum Batman police station, prison. They've got like 30 or 40 terabytes in here, probably more, maybe like 500 terabytes. And they just record nonstop 24 hours a day. And then they back them up for every 6 weeks, right? And so at
that
the point
backup
where
time, they have to take it off and put it back on, right? That's what we're being told. We're also being told that what we're looking at is not his door. We're looking at what somebody would have to walk around to get to his door of that staircase, and that's what we're supposed to be paying attention to, is what's on the left, because as we all know, his door wasn't being filmed anymore because of some error or something. So they're not telling us that this is actually his door we're looking at.
I think
Dude,
that these
Caroline
are
Leavitt drinking adrenochrome milk is just like the image for tonight. I tell you.
Yeah, totally. Is that raw? Is that raw milk or is it Drenkrum? Is it?
You know, also, like, I mean, I know, like, Alex just popped out because we're like 2 hours or almost 3 deep. But isn't like Caroline Leavitt born like the release of like a Britney Spears or Spice Girls album, August 24th, 1997?
She better be. Is she the 5th Spice Girl? Is that?
She's spicy.
Was there 4 Spice Girls or was there 5? I can't in the first.
There was a pregnant one that left.
Okay. So
geriatric
quite
spice.
recently, the FBI director was on Joe Rogan. This is my point. Joe Rogan may not have started out being propaganda, but it's been hacked by billionaires who already focus group what they were going to say on his show when he brought them on their show. And one of those people includes this FBI director who's talking about Epstein. It was a propaganda ploy. They got on there. They basically said that he didn't commit suicide, but they also like avoided certain questions. One of those questions was like, well, is there any footage?
G.I. Jane released the day and the year that Caroline Leavitt was born.
What does it mean?
And the Oasis reunion, right? Because Oasis.
She's not even a GI in that movie, is she?
Be Here Now came out at the same time as Caroline Leavitt's born. Oasis, Be Here Now, and there's the new Oasis reunion, which is totally, come on, because like Champagne Supernova is like the Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate is a Champagne Supernova.
Yeah, where were you when we were getting high?
Heaven's Watergate. What is it?
Like a woman traverses.
That's what you do, Will. Sometimes you're when it comes to people wanting to discuss cult stuff because of your expansive knowledge, is you do Heaven's Gatekeeping. I'm putting that out there.
I like that pun. I'm a fan. All right, so I said the government. So this is a psychological flex. The government knows Epstein's alive, and the list exists. So the blunt denial without excuse becomes even bolder. It's as if they're saying, "We'll lie to your face. You know that we're lying," which is sort of like telling you the truth.
I'm lying.
Well, I mean, it's like they're telling you the truth that they're lying. You know, like it's like you know that we know each other. You know the government. You know that we're liars. We're not going to waste your time here. We love you. We're just going to tell you up to your face because we're lying to everyone. But we're mainly lying to the idiots because only idiots are going to believe this. So most of you are just going to know we're lying, and then we're going to not tell. We don't have to tell you. We're not going to tell you what's going on. We have to have this blackmail. It's worth a lot of money.
Is this the finale in Utopia where there's like, okay, we're going to sit down. If you were to sit down with the average conspiracy theorist, American conspiracy theorist, and tell them what the real conspiracy is, they'd actually go, okay, you know what? Everything I thought, you're actually right. Like, would it really be the thing where you're like, okay, no, that's a good rationale? Like, what would happen if everything was completely transparent and got released? You're like, is that actually a good thing? Like, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I'm like, would it be, is that what's happening? Is that these people like Kash Patel, all these people that get in there and then they're faced with we'll show you the real video of Kennedy getting shot from another angle, like Bill Hicks talked about, but they're like, actually like, oh shit. Yeah. You probably don't want people to know that for real.
Well, you posted this. Did you already mention this, David? The reason
somebody saw that video.
I retweeted Chris, but yeah.
Julian Assange said this. The reason the FBI wouldn't release the Epstein client list comes out in court is because if they did, their blackmail would no longer be useful, and the CIA would lose their control over all the powerful people they spent decades setting up. And whether or not that's, they basically just jacked the list, and it was Mossad that did it originally or not, depends on how you look at it. But it seems pretty interesting timing that P. Diddy, the blackmail, right? Yeah. This was Anna Nicole Wordsmith's point the other day. This is a blackmail trial. And then the LA fires burn all the records that are all the tapes, because all these, they talked about this, the security footage, like those systems we showed earlier, that celebrities have in their rich mansions in the Palisades. that all of their all of their hard drives were destroyed, meaning that all the records of all the freak off parties that go to human trafficking are destroyed. And then there's the really fun one, which is porn NFTs, right? There's an open sea of NFTs, right? You know what this is about. If you have a file that you want to make sure no one sees, you make it child pornography, and then it's illegal to literally have the thing. It's worth money, it has data, and it's laced inside of a photo of something that's illegal to have. I think that's a big thing here, because if you have the data in an NFT that's illegal.
Oh my God, you're probably right. Is that what the tens and thousands of the videos are really about? Oh God.
Yeah. That's what he says on Rogan. When he's asked about the footage on Rogan, we're not going to re-victimize people. We're not going to put child pornography on the internet. And that's what he said. But that means something. That means all of the footage that they have on people, they can't use. It's it's a loophole. And then he said, he's like, well, Joe, don't you think if we had anything on anybody, you would have already seen it. We would have already had it. He never says he doesn't have anything. Every time he's asked, so there's no footage. He goes, well, don't you think we would have already had somebody else arrested? Don't you think that I would have used it? But he never says no.
He says, don't you think?
Don't you think? You could have just stopped it there. Don't you think?
Don't think. Don't think about this. Don't.
You just started don't.
It's like that NLP shit, you know?
Yeah, it's NLP. The whole thing, the whole presidency is NLP, man. Like his
eyes look like somebody who's like really schooled in the traditional like early NLP. Like I'm surprised he doesn't wear all purple like David Icke used to when he first started, you know, like just like as a technique, you know.
That's a technique.
Huh.
All right, can we call it quits, guys? I just
wanted to go back to one thing before I got booted from the cyberspace about the 60 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, you were on one. Yeah, what do you got?
So Pacino finally convinces the people in the 60 Minutes offices that what are we doing here? This is insane, right? And they finally get clearance to kind of go forward with it. They're going to move forward with it. And Mike Wallace says this one throwaway line, and it cuts to another scene, right? And so they've resolved, like, all right, we have to get our integrity back. We're going to go forward with the whistleblower. And Wallace, the main boss, is surprised that Wallace has finally caved. And Wallace just says this one line. He goes, we have to call BlackRock. And then they just cut away. And I don't know exactly what it means in the context of that movie. I think that movie's 1998 or some shit like that.
Yeah,
I don't think many people would have registered BlackRock as a major.
He doesn't say Blackstone. He says BlackRock.
He says we need to call BlackRock. He's like, all right, we're going forward with this. What are we going to do? First, we need to call BlackRock. And then it shuts off. I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was a line in a movie that seems like a throwaway. But in 30 years later, and if you read Whitney Webb, and some of the people involved who owned CBS and ran 60 Minutes, it might kind of signal a sort of transition because certain forces definitely infiltrated Hollywood because they recognized the propaganda power of Hollywood. But it really feels like that movie is about infiltrating television journalism. It's not like they were not flirting around with television, but they had cracked into the very inner sanctum of what TV's only redemptive factor was telling the people what is going on.
Right.
And it was like, it's over. It ended.
You could make the same argument for Anchorman 2, though.
But I just feel like they realized that television was never going to compete with the burgeoning internet and that major changes were going under the surface. And I don't know.
There's still things that we can't get, even though we have internet. Like you mentioned that Truman.
The Oprah show.
The Oprah show, bro. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, Klaus. Every time I hear you on an interview, I take notes and then I go back and fact check you because I never know if you're telling the truth or just playing with me. One time you told me that Jake Kotza was interviewed on Candace Owens or some shit.
Never
and
said
then
that.
halfway through, you started laughing.
No,
because you were-
Never said that.
Claims.
Yes, you did. I guarantee you.
You have to prove that one. I'll wait for you to fact
So,
check.
Well,
that.
if I told you to your face that
No,
Jake Coates was on Candace
because
Owens,
you
missed my tone.
Even your section in Sync Book 2 is not to be taken seriously. There's a couple of things that you say sometimes where you're playing like Trickster Klaus. Can we agree on Trickster
For
Klaus?
sure.
Yeah. It's kind of a bit of an Andy Kaufman quality himself.
So I'm just saying sometimes I double check you because you kind of maybe hyperbolize the situation or kind of like lay yourself down as saying I'm not an authority. So I checked you on the whole Oprah Truman stuff because I've got a ton of research.
Yeah.
I've got filing cabinets on Jim Carrey. So you can't find it.
Right.
Like I don't even think it's included in the box sets.
I don't think it
I
is.
went down to trying to get the box sets, and that particular episode is not out. In fact, I can track it down to when it happened. I can track it down to the date it happened, but I can't find footage on it.
There's no
the
transcript.
Last
There's no
scene of The
footage.
Shining is the same freaking thing. I saw
You
it.
said it was the Truman Show, and I found and discovered it had to have been because one of the only times that he's on Oprah is after Truman Show.
Yeah.
And I know that he's mentioned Illuminati and other conversations that were like way later, like 10 years or so later.
Way later.
Later.
Remember when
But you
Chappelle
also
was
have,
on
like,
Oprah?
Triangle Eyes and like multiple movies that he's done. It's like really stupid.
Remember when Chappelle was on Oprah?
It's the whole thing. The fireman symbol is like the Illuminati symbol.
I really feel like that interview that he did with Oprah that day was kind of like when Chappelle was forced to go on Oprah.
Yeah, because that's a classic one too.
And if they could remove that episode with Chappelle on Oprah, they would.
Yeah.
I've been going through the ghost stories for the Comedy Store in LA because supposedly the Comedy Store was owned by Benny Siegel, and so there's a long history of comedians who have experienced ghost stories or paranormal events within the Comedy Store. But there's one in particular where somebody said they opened up a room and they saw a seance, and there was a bunch of people with cloaks, and they had like, the typical seance type of Lovecraftian weird ritual going on. He said he like waited outside the thing, and then a couple of people, including Lily Tomlin, I think that he mentioned specifically, they were in there trying to talk to what's his face?
Sam Kinison. No, just kidding.
No. There is someone who says they saw Sam Kinison, but no, with the other guy that we were just talking about, the man on the moon,
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. They were in the Comedy Store trying to like communicate spiritually.
Oh, well, I'm going to believe that one automatically, Will. It's just like, well, of course they were.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they would probably be, but as soon as I heard it, like when they're telling the story and they're talking about seeing these people in robes, I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, were they ghosts? And then they came out and they were trying to talk to Kaufman. I was like, yeah, they were.
Of course.
There's no way they weren't.
Yeah. If you'd said almost anybody else, I probably wouldn't believe it. But I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's something they would do. Maybe Lenny Bruce. Maybe Lenny Bruce. So
I heard some other stories. Like after the Man on the Moon was made, they had this like statuette or painting or something or a picture that they had redone where instead of Kaufman, it was Carrey as Kaufman, and they never displayed it, even though Carrey and Kaufman were both in the Comedy Store. I found that kind of interesting that they had like reproduced this thing, but they never like showcased it because they would have rather showcased.
That's if there's any proof of the Nefesh as like the collective soul phenomenon that souls can transmigrate, that's evidence of it. Of an instance of that is Carrey and Kaufman.
Maybe. I mean, it's very. I mean, Carrey had been known as the man with the rubber face before because there's those transformations that he took.
Time doesn't care, dude. Time's not linear when it comes to the Nefesh. That's kind of the whole point.
Carrey's weird, bro. Like, what if there is Illuminati? Like, all of the symbolism is over the top. It's not one person's work. There's multiple people who
What
agree
if?
on different
I mean,
angles.
there's the Illuminati. That's the Bavarian Illuminati of whatever that was exposed with Weisenhop and all that. That's one thing. And then you have the just what that was as hijacking a movement that has a certain, kind of well-intentioned ambition relatively, and then it gets infiltrated so people can redirect it. That's one thing. Then there's the actual Illuminati. Hodorowski kind of speaks to that in certain ways, where it's like, what are the real higher influencers that are really like directing humanity? Maybe Lucis Trust might speak to that or whatever. But like, I can entertain that there's like this corrupt
We
version
are the
of
Illuminati. Our
what was
friends are the
exposed
Illuminati.
with
Like,
Weisenhop. But
Robert Anton Wilson said, "Make your friends the Illuminati." Like, in a way, individuals who are into sync, you know what? I don't give a fuck if this is sophist. Like, we're kind of elite in a way that there's not very many people who speak the language and agree upon certain ideas like we do. And so we are, in a way, people just need to like realize this. If you are a sync head and you understand this stuff, you're a little bit ahead of the curve. That doesn't give you an advantage, though. In fact, it kind of puts you a little bit behind.
Zap
So it's
your
not
Pope
really
that
like we're the
witchcraft.
Illuminati because we have power. However, bro, there are some really enlightening people when you get down to like Alex Fulton and Goro Adachi, where you can just watch them spin plates on little poles and keep them all going. And it's like, it's crazy. These people have talent. They have something going on for them. But we have no power, bro. I'm talking about if there was an individual or individuals who were putting secret codes to subliminally affect the audience, that would be the Illuminati. And some of these movies in certain decades are a lot more pronounced than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be looked at if you're an investigator. If there was a certain point in history where all of a sudden AI or some group of individuals were like dictating what symbols got put into movies, then there's a threshold. Now, what they were doing could have very well been just to manipulate a natural thing that was already happening. But I think you can tell the difference.
But the Hierophantic task goes beyond personality cult. The Hierophantic task goes directly into the collective unconscious, and that's the Jungian thing, man. Like it transcends all of these systems.
What has more power to control people, literature or theater?
I would argue that they're the same, especially in the context of the Bavarian Illuminati, because in addition to writing and philosophy and all of the blackmail operations that the Illuminati did, they also popularized Mozart, Beethoven, and Bach, which were child pop stars of their time. So there's really, in my mind, there's no separation from the Illuminati in the 18th century controlling society through child pop stars and the Illuminati in the 21st century controlling society through movies and musical pop stars. It's been the exact same formula, even though our mediums have changed and technology has changed. The exact same techniques have been laid out since, again, like the late 18th century.
All right, so here's the distinction about the time frame. All right, now if you have a Beethoven symphony, right, what is required in 1785, or forget the fucking year, whatever it is, what is required to execute the symphony to a standard that actually replicates the notes on the pages, right? And then who is offered the opportunity to go bear witness to the execution of the symphony? Whereas a book that you can create and you can print, it's the same for every single person, right? So literature in that time frame is ubiquitously the same, whereas the execution of Beethoven is very, very rare, because if you don't have the 78 performers, the wherewithal to take the event and make it actually execute the sound of the symphony, you're not necessarily square school, round school. The square school dominated when the printing press was invented because it overtook music and theater, because the ability to control people was so much easier in a conformist book that was printed and exactly the same. Now, when film came on the scene, right, the first thing they do is they're basically taking, well, we don't have the actors and we don't have the building for a theater. It's so anyone can go into a building and enjoy the show. Right. So these stories come in, right? But then they realized that you could start doing the tricks of literature within the film in ways that you couldn't do in theater. This was almost like blending the square school and the round school. And certain very, very intelligent people started to realize, holy shit, yeah, you have the play going on, which is the figure, but the ground is the page. And now you can start putting all these things that are behind the figure, behind the narrative, and you have these two different theaters that are blended, right? And then Kubrick obviously took us to the highest level and was the premier one, because what is his first major breakthrough? A space Odyssey, right? He's referencing not only Joyce, but he's referencing the 1001 Nights, but he's also putting in everything in the 20th century. So this film world exploded in a way where I do believe the term Illuminati was like, there are some illuminated motherfuckers who are doing things that we don't know how they do it or what they do, but it is having an impact politically. That's the number one rule that you get in trouble with. If you get to a point, rhetoric is so pronounced and so sharp, like a Bruno or like a Lenny Bruce, and you start influencing people in an entertaining environment, but you starting influencing their political thinking, you become a very dangerous man. But the thing that Kubrick was doing was that he was influencing people in their unconscious so deeply, almost beyond politically, right? That he needed to probably align himself with forces to protect him so that he could continue his craft. So, like, to say that the Illuminati, no, there are Illuminatis. It would be like saying the think tank of the 21st century. There are tons of think tanks on the internet right now. It's just the standard to which you take it to. So, yeah, Will, I think that the fact that we've got 20 years in the game makes these forums utterly unique. Does it make us more powerful? Shit, no. You know what I mean? But I do think we launch memes in these forums in a way that is pronounced. You know, the fandom and the people who listen and comment, they have to tune in because there's something about the way that we've been quilting or this like knitting circle that we have. It's not just this show. It goes back years, decades now.
Well, see, one of my fondest research experiences was at the sinkhole, because when you would put something up and you might not have it all. You get what I'm saying? And then you would go to sleep, you'd wake up in the morning and there would be this cohesive like addition to this.
Yes.
That's extremely validating.
Oh,
but what,
best.
like that, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about recognition. Like that feeling of being able to like speak the same language for a common goal, and where you basically like Sync was like a college. Like the amount of stuff that Sync has taught me or led me to, like Waco, because my whole intention there is nothing but Sync. Like all of a sudden, like I know a lot about this, but I can't tell no one, dude. Like there's nothing in my being that is persuasive. Even if I was with the sinkhole, like nobody knows me over Jake Kotza. Like they don't even know I helped on the sinkhole. I was just basically a writer for him.
I knew you did, but I think of you as a few shots to Shaman. But you were there. Your name was underneath the post.
My name was under a bunch of that stuff. And I remember like going back and looking for pictures and how people had scraped it and put it up on MySpace.
Right.
Like there was
some weird German website that you don't even know what the hell they're using it for. Yeah.
Yeah. Like people misunderstand what you do or don't, or they use it. Like somebody sent me something that had to do with like Carl Weathers, because I did all of these videos on Carl Weathers and stuff. And that's like leaked into the whole pop culture, even though probably no more than like 500 people saw that video. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. And they're like, oh, they stole it. It's like, no, it's like anything we do almost becomes common knowledge after we do it.
Yeah,
And
but
Like
you know
they
what?
say,
That
the
thing that
Velvet
happened to
Underground.
Alan Abadessa Green with the squares that touch, and then the show Touch came out, and the poster for it was almost verbatim exactly what Alan had photoshopped. And you're like, yeah, I'm
But see,
pretty sure they did a Google search for synchronicity because the show's about synchronicity, saw Alan's image, and just used it. You know, that's sure what it
maybe, or
looks like
maybe it
happened.
was just like the natural happenstance. But I
It
mean,
could go either way, and that's what makes it so like
it
mystical.
brings it back to the mundane. I mean, the original definition of sync is like finding the esoteric in the mundane, right? To like boil it down to what it was. Like that's the practice. You go back and you watch Outer Limits, and you're like, how does Outer Limits like affect modern? But I like some of these people predict things all the time. Like Lauren Coleman, I've seen predict. Like Alex, I've seen predict. Like Goro, I've seen predict. But after that stuff like happens, nobody cares. Nobody like, to me, I was like, I've already been seeing this shit proved for multiple times. But these things like all of a sudden lose their flair as soon as you say them. You get what I mean? Like it's wild.
Why haven't we had Sybil on any of these shows? Did she just not want to?
Bro, that's another thing. Sybil hit me up. Sybil hit me up recently because there was a fire. But I know this because a bunch of my friends in Alabama posted the same video. But there was a fireball that basically burnt out over Atlanta, right? Where Sybil is. And Sybil was like, dude, I had the dream of it happening before it happened.
Yeah,
she and I like, her. You know, all of her syncs, she has a bunch of syncs that have to do with FF. And I started talking about the symbolism of Fantastic Four coming out because that all has to do with Doomsday, and both the fact that it brings in Doctor Doom, but it also brings in Galactus, who Galactus and the Silver Surfer are like God and Lucifer, or the Angel of Death. Like he's the herald saying your planet's going to die. And so Sybil and I have been talking a lot lately, but one of the things that she said, I told her I'd have this reoccurring dream multiple times where I saw like spaceships and weird shapes in the sky, more than one time in the shape of a cross. But I didn't say that. All I basically said was I saw shit in the sky like crosses and stuff. And she sent me like the Nuremberg, I think is what it's called, picture of there's weird stuff in the sky.
Yeah,
and she said that she had that dream also. But I'm wondering, like, I don't have a big enough audience right here where I get responses if I ask people, but there's got to be some way to find out if multiple people have had that dream. Because like all of the symbolism that's going to happen on the 25th because of Fantastic Four has to do with the overall idea of Doomsday or Judgment Day. Not saying it's actually going to happen. I'm just going to say it's definitely going to symbolically happen.
Well, unveil, reveal, who knows? I'm just waiting for a big reveal. Because this is the thing, and this is why I find it a very positive thing to get deep into conspiracy plays, to follow conspiracy threads, is because if you're looking at certain examples, I would say the JFK assassination is a really good one. You will find places where they barely, the players barely got through certain parts by the skin of their teeth, where there was almost a big exposure that happened, and it just got so like it was almost there, and then by a thread, and then they had something happen that was like, oh cool, now I can keep going. Like that's why it becomes this very positive thing, because you're like, at a certain point it's going to reach a threshold where there's going to be a big reveal. This is the one thing that I share in perspective with the Q folks, is I think that there's something to that in just the mathematically, just statistically. The nature of the thing is such that it will reach that point at some point where there's going to be because they use the same formulas again and again. And that's where Crowley comes in with the Lusitania stuff and all this. Like if you use the same formula over and over and over, like I was talking about the Super Bowl, it's like at a certain point, you can't keep using the same formula because it's going to become, and it means if you find it for real in one place that gets exposed, then it like goes down the chain like dominoes. You can just see they did the same thing there. They did the same thing there. They did the same thing there. And that's how exposure actually works. Like, it's like, you'll see it like happen, like almost like a fractal, where it's like, we see what you did there. And then it's like, wait, did they do the same thing there and there and there and there? I've had that happen with people in my personal life where I've dealt with liars, and then like I catch them in a major lie, and then I start going back over like the end of Usual Suspects when he starts looking around the room, and it's like back when I was picking beans in Guatemala or whatever, and you're like, wait a second, dude, you've been doing the same thing all through our friendship. like you're a liar. Like you're not just like I caught you in a lie. It's like you've been doing the same style of lie over and over and over again. It's like revelatory, and it's like it was something that was hidden in plain sight. Like that's going to happen with the public. The only way to regain the public's trust when it comes to the health department and all these other places is transparency, and they're going to be reluctant about it, but it's going to happen whether they do it purposely or not.
Here's the thing. I think it's like lies or secrets make syncs. And this is my evidence. The evidence first is because of the Rose McGowan thing. I had that interaction with Rose McGowan where I'm like, you have all of these reoccurring car accidents. What's going on? And then later, 4 years later, she comes out and says the car accident that happened to her in real life, that was just a publicity stunt. So I'm like, boom. The reason this shit was happening in your sync web is because that was a secret, and it was kind of revealing the secret. Syncs reveal, right?
Yes.
Right. So, like with the whole David Koresh thing, the narrative of David Koresh follows more John Carter, who is the same actor who plays him in the series, right? So if you mix those two characters together, John Carter is a more true representative of what David Koresh said than the series. Right. But I had to go dig deep to reveal that secret. I had to go to people, and then they were like, no, we're not telling you because that's a secret.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that the secret happened because it was the sync happened because it was a secret. It's a secret, right?
This is all Philip K. Dick. This is all Philip K. Dick, right? Because the empire,
the more things people don't know, the more it pops out through what their actions are subconsciously.
It's a Jungian slip, right? It's the black iron prison trying to contain and obscure, but PKD says the truth always grows up through the trash stratum. Through the mundane, through the most base thing. And the empire has all these things that they can control, but the one thing they can't control is where these things arise up organically. You can't stop it, right? PKD said that this was the Holy Spirit, that this was what the whole system was designed for, right? That they thought they had victory and containment, but what they did is they just created a receptacle for the Holy Spirit. Right? And this is what sent Koresh upwards, outwards, and into the stars. Right? And the fact that the people that were listening to his message were not just what you would consider schizophrenics and, mentally handicapped people. These were lawyers. These were bright people who were saying, I have found the others. I have found someone where I can put my message out there and wake up and get back something that is substantial, right? It's something that the empire cannot control.
They kept their mouth shut. But because they were so that like the experience they had was so proving that they kept their mouth shut, and them keeping their mouth shut creates the sync. But they were using sync. Like David Koresh said that certain things that he had experienced were leaking into the movies that Hollywood was creating.
Yes.
And so he was showing them the movies, but that's sync. Like I go to them and I was like, I know he's doing this. And then it turns out that he is doing that. I'm like, yay, I was right. And they're not seeing like the connection because they think that that's schizophrenic. They think that I'm schizophrenic. They think that we have apophenia. I'm like, nah, we know what apophenia is, and we've learned how to use it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
This is why this is the thing with Polanski. He's doing the same thing that a lot of people in Hollywood are doing. What is happening in Rosemary's Baby? She's going crazy, right? Like she's feeling crazier and crazier. Everyone around her telling her she's crazy, but she's picked up on, wait, there's some secret thing happening here. And I'm seeing it in this Scrabble when I rearrange the letters of the name of this book. And she goes into a place of total cognitive dissonance, right? Where it's just like, you don't know what it's like Alice in Wonderland. You don't know, nothing would be what it is because everything would be what it isn't. And you go to this place. That's the nature of the old film Gaslight, right? Where we get the term where she's like, wait a second, but it all has to do with that there's this underlying secret, and she's feeling crazy because the secret's becoming more and more less of a secret, but it's disorienting. And so like that's happening culturally right now. Like, and people are acting out from a place of it because it makes you feel totally neurotic.
It's the princess. It's the princess and the pea, right? You have the princess on the 10 mattresses. She should be in her absolute delight and relaxation, and it should be the most luxurious sleeping arrangement. But there's something at the bottom, undetected beneath the surface, that makes her unable to relax. Right. And the story is sent out as if, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. But how come this person can detect something so small, so meaningless, but creating her so much discomfort that she can't sleep at night?
Right.
And it's, again, that sync definition you said. What was it? The esoteric and the mundane?
It's changed now. Because what happened was when I went to the chat bots to try to talk about synchro-mysticism, it treated synchronicity like a pseudoscience, and it treated like synchro-mysticism as conspiratorial.
Well, that's where it's gone, because you have all these conspiracy people who are not into the genuine mystic, like in the Jungian sense. They're coming at it like as though the shell is the whole thing, and they're saying, I'm a synchro mystic, but you guys are staying at the superficial realm of the shell that surrounds sync, which is conspiracy culture. And so conspiracy culture is going under the guise of sync, and what's happening is the AI, when you ask it about it, it's attributing all this other crap to the thing that's actually like runs deeper. The point is that when you hit the conspiracy and you see that there's this level of conspiracy and you keep going, you find just it's like the Scott Onstott stuff in Secrets in Plain Sight, where you see that, oh, obviously there's this level of intentionality when it comes to measuring these sacred sites, or whatever you want to call them, all these churches and all this stuff, because you have these Freemasons doing very intentional stuff to build these structures. But then you get into a place where it goes beyond that, and you can see like the actual order of nature expressing itself, and you're like, where's that line between the intention and the thing in itself? That's what I love about the meditations that go along with sync film stuff for me, is because there's cases where I'm like, how could this not be intentional? Like it crosses a definite line, but then I'm like, wait a second, shit in nature does that too. I don't know. Can I make peace with not knowing? Do I have to know? And that's a tough one, you know?
Well, anytime that you practice ceremonial magic in a public way, you are unintentionally bringing to the people chaos magic, right? And chaos magic is something you cannot control. The minute you attempt to extinguish chaos magic, you start to chip away at the power of ceremonial magic, right? So once you introduce that into a system, that's what punk music was, right? Punk music came out of nowhere and said, you don't need a 128 track recording studio that you pay $1,000 a day to make an album to sell and make money. You can go into a garage with a tape recorder and make a cassette that moves the people in a much more powerful way. Right.
And now the elites all want to be up in like Basquiat stuff to attach themselves to these, like, in almost a vampiric way, to these levels of society that they don't really have a connection to, but they want to. So somebody like what's her name, Ellen, DeGeneres, or Jay-Z at the same time can like sport the logo, and people are reading into it with frazzle flop, but like point being is that people, like, the nature of the relationship between the elite and the low and the people who are like experiencing the nitty gritty side of things, like there's always like this disjoint that exists between the rungs of society. And that's what Metropolis is speaking to, that the mediator between the hands and the mind must be the heart, and that there's like this ultimate, like, kind of like, this is going to that's reaching a perpetual crescendo towards us seeing how like how all of this is connected in a way that goes beyond something that we're able to process in any like, you know, kind of rationalizing way. Like it's profound. Like the way that everything's connected is so profound, but it's like we can't handle that. That's why like what we're seeing right now happening with the Epstein crap is like you can't handle the truth. It's freaking Jack Nicholson with "Did you order the code red?" You know what I mean? You can't handle it, and they're going to tell you that you can't handle it, but you're like, what? We are built to handle everything, life and death, and everything in between. Like that's the nature of it all. Like there's nothing that we can't ultimately handle because we're born and we die. Like what are you talking about? But we're in this interim where we haven't gotten there quite yet. You know what I mean? Like it comes with the fall, you know? I feel like I want to hear from Thomas, though. We've been going the hell off.
Thomas?
I'm at work. I'm at work this whole time. I just have to point out.
Oh.
So I'm getting,
like
I'm getting paid to be a
just over there eating a sandwich, you know.
Well, I'm a professional synchro mystic. That's how I read that.
You're a 42nd degree synchro mystic.
Yeah.
42 degrees synchro mystic.
Well, what I wanted to say though is that you're talking earlier about the finding profundity in the mundane, and that definition of sync that came from Jake. Like I told Jake
originally
before,
labeled as a belief. I had to because chatbots don't have beliefs, and yet the chatbot can do it by reading the movies
as a
and
dream.
a symbolic dream as if they were dreams.
Right.
So I think it's been labeled as a practice now. Now it's the practice of viewing the esoteric or the occult in the mundane.
What's that, Thomas?
Well, when you say AI doesn't have beliefs, not to as us in an annoying way, but how do you know that you have beliefs any more than AI would have beliefs?
Right. Well, that's a Robert Anton Wilson question too. And like, is that even, can you live and exist without beliefs at all? And that becomes a question because a belief is a conclusion. Can you live in a place without an ultimate conclusion? And that's a place for most people's discomfort. Meditation is, if real meditation is, if you can find peace within that discomfort and just exist that way. And if you do, what you'll probably find is that data will accumulate to the point that it speaks for itself and it requires no representation. Truth does not require representation. We treat it as though we need some mediator. That's how the church continues to thrive as an organized structure the way that it does, right? Where you go into the confessional and you need some mediator between you and God, right? Like that's the meaning of the Masonic G as it relates to Gimel in the Kabbalistic tree of life, you know, is it's like there's a direct connection here, a direct vertical connection between the mind of man and the mind of God, but we're treating it as though, no, it's actually this other, we need something in between to like work for us.
In the other. So there's no way you can get around. And see, this is like something that happens with David Koresh and others. There's like a whole category of individuals who say that they talk to God, including Philip K. Dick. But there's this whole idea of like, God takes over their brain, so to speak, or that your brain is not sectioned off from the storehouse of all brains. So what is normally called wisdom, I guess, in the Jewish tradition.
Right, but you could have Samael masquerading as God, and then you're saying, "Oh, God is talking through me," but really, it's the fucking triple tongue.
They come through the same apparatus. In fact, even if you look in the Bible, evil, what is called like, if you think of spirits as like what the word spirit kind of implies is that it's the same common thought. So if you have like the spirit of synchro-mysticism is everybody who has sync thought, or the spirit of volleyball is like everybody who's accustomed to volleyball or whatever. But when someone talks in the spirit of Christ, they're talking the truth. And so anybody who talks the truth is in the spirit of Christ. But there's this idea that all evil spirits recognized Christ on sight. And so there was a lot of confusion because somehow Christ has the same power over evil spirits as the evil spirits have over individuals. And shit.
This
So
is Harry Potter.
It's the same apparatus.
This is Harry Potter, because Harry Potter, what he threatened Voldemort so much is that Voldemort spent all his time mastering the dark arts, but Harry Potter understood the dark arts in a way that Voldemort never could, right? Voldemort got corrupted by the dark arts. Potter was able to take it in, recognize it, like you said, just as fact without any thought, knows what it is and has power over it because he can control it through rejection on some level, right? And no, I think what you're saying is correct, because if you have churches that are dotted across Europe, right, and every church has one single thing that's always the same book, right? It's that all these separate mutually exclusive buildings are actually running on the same hard drive.
Yep, there you go. So that's the thing when it comes to, if you go in deep into, like, because they say with religion and with mysticism, you're supposed to ideally dig one deep well to hit the water. So they're like, if you go to this one and you go to that one and all you're doing is going from place to place, you're never really going to hit the wellspring because you're not going deep enough to hit water. I disagree with that completely. I think if you go deep enough into each one, what you're going to find, especially if we're talking secret, not so secret society stuff, is you'll find that generally speaking, they're all taking from the same symbol set. And so, like, and that's where
it's the War of the Snakes. The guy who tricks you is also Christ. Like, they're pretty much two sides of the same coin. And a lot of, like, if you look at, I think we've mentioned this on the show before, there's a lot of symbolism as far as like prophets, their heads keep getting cut off. As far as even in the mythology of Orpheus, who told the future, his head was cut off. John the Baptist's head is cut off. The Templars were kind of convicted.
That guy in the cannon, yeah.
That's a symbol of like something being put in the head. And there's even like that Kyle, the one guy who said that he saw a shape-shifting reptile and shot the guy like 6 times. You guys remember this? Kyle Odom, I think is what his name was.
Oh, that's a familiar name, but no, I don't know what you're referring to.
Kyle Odom was a shooter who shot up a guy who was a priest because he said that guy was going to become a lawmaker.
Oh,
and
right.
The guy survived, and Kyle Odom had a manifesto. I wasn't very into him until the guy that he shot who survived became a lawmaker. And then I was like, well, he might have become a lawmaker because Kyle shot him, but he still became a lawmaker.
Right, that's the paradox. There's a kind of a Ricky Gervais style like Hitler explanation with that. Like, it was, like Hitler foresaw the future of where things were going to go, tried to stop it, but really all he saw was what would be created by what he did. So it's like he creates the thing that he's trying to stop by his attempt to stop it, because it's all a total paradox of like that, and that's in the paradox of prophecy and what distinguishes it from just regular prediction, right? Because like if you're predicting that something's going to happen, but then you're making it happen by your negative reaction to the prediction, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to.
He said, Kyle Odom said that he was hearing voices in his head, which is the same thing that people like Koresh and Philip K. Dick are experiencing also. But what he said was that the song that's we're gonna make him stay up all night.
Oh, right.
Little baby, he's just a plaything. We're gonna make him stay up all night. And he's like, I didn't even know what that song was. And then the voices started telling me that I was gonna get my head chopped off just like Jesus. I didn't know Jesus has had his head cut off. And I'm like, there's like passages where they call it the head.
You know who wrote that song that you're singing, right?
Right. Who?
The Talking Heads.
Exactly.
Oh,
so it's like a thing where he's receiving messages from these voices that are true, even though he doesn't understand the sync. But they are influencing to do things that have a real impact on the future. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right.
So
yeah,
I'm telling
I do.
you that individuals who hear voices in their head become shooters are also in the same category as people who think they hear the name of God. And there's like a little thin wall between them.
Well, yeah, they say that liberation or enlightenment is like a razor's edge between absolute despair and that liberation, that because of the nature of ego, to be at that threshold, you can go in either direction. And so that's explains a lot when you're like, when you look at some of these crazies, that they could have just gone, they were at a certain place, and it was like it's the crossroads, right? So you've taken it to this ultimate point, and now it's like, where are you going with this? Are you going to go into the absolute epitome of super ego, or are you going to like transcend the thing and go to the other witness consciousness, you know? And so yeah, because that's a difficult one, because you can go completely into reptilian cold-blooded brain, or you can actually go like beyond into the Ein Sof. Yeah.
So even if like he's having visions that correspond to that idea, right? If he's seeing somebody turn into a reptile, is that just his reptile brain talking to him? It's a big conundrum, but it's all related.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding, if you look at like, I wanted to go into some of the stuff with David Icke, but we didn't. We had to give him the platform to really do his thing. But these were questions that I've had for years about the whole reptilian thing, because I found references in ancient texts to the reptilian. And like it reads like, because Keter literally translates as middle brain in throughout the Zohar. Like it is, you're referencing the middle brain, and then Ein Sof is beyond that, right? But you're talking about the most medial point, the core of the organism, and that it goes into the etheric realm. It's not just dense physical matter. Like there's a tree of life within every Sephiroth, and then the tree, you know, it keeps going like this. It describes a fractal. And so like I've wondered about the reptilian thing, because like that the serpent in the garden has legs, right? Like, and what is the allegory? What is being communicated? It goes beyond allegory, because we're literally describing the nature of evolution, is that whatever the organism is existing as, it's actually extending from what was ruling the prior. So in the same way, like, so Jim Morrison tripped out on this thing. He had his own version of Nietzsche's story with the lightning storm, with his neighbor killing the lamb, and like that was his basis for Beyond Good and Evil. He had his version of that where he's driving through the desert as dawn, and it's symbolic. And who knows, just like with Nietzsche, you don't know if it's real or if it's just his allegory, where he's got his mother and father and grandmother and grandfather and him. So you have 3 generations in the car. They roll up and they see all these dead Indians scattered on the highway bleeding to death. And 1 or 2 of those, of the souls of the ghosts of those Indians, leap into his soul, and it's there as a hitchhiker ever since. That was his hitchhiker thing, where you pick up the hitchhiker on the side of the road. It's as though you're being possessed by this other thing. But the point is that like, and you see this in his postmortem album, An American Prayer, where it goes directly from that story with the ghost song to the blood in the streets in the town of New Haven, blood stains the roofs and the palm trees of Venice, blood is the rose of mysterious union. He's describing that we've killed the Native Americans, and now, just like with The Shining and Poltergeist, you move the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies, didn't you? It's the repression. You can even go to Me, Myself, and Irene. You repress the thing, and now it's working its way through the current expression. So we have the spirits of the ghosts of those dead Indians, of all the sacrifice that's occurred throughout time on whatever bit of land you're on, is coming up through you. So like a long time ago, the dinosaurs ruled the earth. And now they roamed the earth, and now they roam us, because we're not completely evolved beyond the reptilian, because there's still a core aspect of ourselves that still is that cold-blooded nature of what we haven't entirely evolved out of. And so that's the nature of the thing, as such, is that we're reaching a threshold where we're about to nullify the last of that reptilian. When you read in the Zohar, when it's describing the nullification of the klipot, like the final stages as we exist as we do, it says, what's the last klipot left? It's the Leviathan. You have like this ancient part of ourselves that's like integrated into the core of our consciousness, that's like, that expresses itself as this medial aspect, because it's what's left of what we came from. And so it's like, and so there's this purging. And that's why when people take ayahuasca, it's very like, everyone has this experience of the biblical origin story, because you can see that serpent in the garden, what that communicates. It goes beyond allegory. It is an allegory, but it's also transcendent of allegory, because the nature of the thing is almost exactly that. You're like, we're literally have the reptilian living in us, and we're trying to go through this process of purging it. And that's what this breakdown is of the duality, because we're projecting something on top of something that's something else. It's a continuum. We're projecting this duality on top of it, and the thing is breaking down as the organism continues to break down into something else, because it's a transmutative process, right?
It's Ouroboros, which you mentioned. I've just listened to a video today that had linked the cockatrice to the legend of the Leviathan, and then had circled back around and shown you where they were in Harry Potter. And I'm like, that's all described in scripture. Like the whole relationship between the cockatrice and the Leviathan are both representative of that whole snake in the Garden of Eden and Christ having this war. It's
it's the first thing that Harry Potter encounters is the serpent, and right after they're showing you the lightning that leaves the mark on his head. So you're connecting the lightning with the serpent at the very beginning of the whole Harry Potter thing, because she was hip enough to know practical magic.
Up the tree and down the tree. The lightning strike and the snake are related. But also you got to understand the lightning bolt is tied to the white horse. So Pegasus's real name comes from lightning bolt. And there's also the Barak, which it's a horse that takes Muhammad up to the seventh heaven. That name also means lightning bolt. And so there's a whole relationship between all of those symbols of the Christ or whatever coming back, and the white horse is symbolic of the lightning bolt. And that goes
into the hero with 1,000 faces thing with the idea that like Zeus is an archetype that's connected with the Pegasus and this whole thing. Actually, Joe's video, the Void, our Christ bearer, goes into this.
Yeah. Because Joe's work is really like solid. And the cool thing about Joe's work is it's not like he's trying to go a certain direction and he's making the media go that direction. He's showing you what's there. So like the whole Christopher, like Christ bearer shit, which is probably better than the whole Back to the Future 9/11 stuff, that kind of gets overlooked because it's a little bit too much work. But it's there. Like all of his work is like solid. The thing I like about Joe is when we did the 9/11 Back to the Future video that has like 4 million or 6 million views or whatever like that, like our names are at the back of that. But there was really nothing that I gave Joe that Joe didn't already have. And at the same time, I'm like, that's validating, because you're coming to him, it's like, here's my research. And he's like, well, did you also know that blah, 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 blah. And it's like, not only did he know, like the same thing that I experienced with the sinkhole, not only did they understand what I was talking about, but they could add to it. And that's like more evidence of all of us speaking the same language. He did
that with Jake more than anybody in Back to the Future Predicts 9/11 specifically. Like according to him, he's inspired by Jake more than anybody with that. But where he goes with it is so like beyond what Jake had done, which really speaks to what you're describing. But he did it more with him, where it was like, yeah, this is an idea that he got directly from Jake, and myself with parts of it with the monolith at Ground Zero with the Millennium Hilton. But like, where he went with it, you can tell the point where he incorporates Jake big time is when he literally changes his voice to sound like Jake's. You can hear it when it happens in the video.
Well, if you think about reptilian brain and what reptilian brains, I think how they function, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but I was talking about punk music evolving, and it was something that it couldn't control. But I think after punk, it was rap that was the most revolutionary force. And if you think about Public Enemy and Do the Right Thing, that 1-2 punch of Public Enemy and Spike Lee made a movie that if you go back and watch Do the Right Thing, it will fuck you up. It is such, like, they just don't make movies, independent movies with that kind of fury that just like, every time I watch Do the Right Thing, it hits me harder and harder. I was like, yeah, he got the praise at the moment, but that movie stands alone as one of the just absolute triumphs of this sort of revolutionary spirit that evolves out of what would consider like the basement or the trash stratum.
Well,
right?
I agree with you, Bill.
And so like the reptilian brain sees that happening. And when was the last time rap music was considered a revolutionary force?
Right. Well, rap really got hijacked at the death of Tupac. A lot of investors jumped into hip hop, like a lot of really, really rich, influential people, and directed the style and the nature of what they wanted it to be for their means of controlling, which is kind of goes into like, some kind of like directed chaos kind of thing, but they wanted to influence gangster rap to become the dominant thing rather than things like Jurassic 5 or something, you know what I mean? Like,
but they take something
that
that
is three-corner positivity anymore. They wanted it to be, you know, guns, bitches, hoes, crack,
well,
STDs,
that's what I'm saying is you have this
like,
evolution, this organic evolution happening with the people in reality on the streets, organically sprouting through the surface, right? But then the reptilian brain devolves it. It seemingly is getting bigger, bolder, more colorful. It's on bigger stages, but it's actually not getting any better. It's actually getting worse because it's under so much more reptilian control. I almost said reptilian brain for a second, but I won't say it.
KRS-One has
but here, one quick thing. One quick thing. Synchro-mysticism, I think, is part of this organic revolutionary spirit, you know, breaking through. But have you noticed that synchro-mysticism has not been able to be controlled or mainstreamed or take, like, imagine if synchro-mysticism had the arc of rap, right? Imagine if Universal Pictures was releasing an absolutely, like, it just can't work that way. You know what I mean? You can't corrupt synchro-mysticism. It's incorruptible. And I'm not saying that, like, you can't corrupt real rap. You can't corrupt real punk, right? But they achieved it to some extent. But they will never do that with whatever we're calling this synchro-mysticism thing. I think that's why we keep talking about it, right? Because it's like, what is that about what we're talking about that you can't control and you can't contain and you can't market and you can't sell? You know what I mean?
Right. I don't think we're going to get to a place where there's like a higher ESG score.
You can get it.
How much incorporate synchronicity. Sorry.
Okay, we got to cut the chaos off.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that, like, when this keeps, Bill, I don't know if you realize that, like, you keep cutting out, but like you're in the dining room,
and
so like I can hear you. I can hear you when you get enthusiastic. I can hear you keep going over there, but then in my headphones, you're no longer. I'm sorry.
It's a sign.
We got to cut the feed. It's been 3 hours, 40 minutes. Who gets to pull the plug?
I don't know, but I think that missing minute in the Epstein stuff, it's totally like Contact, you know, which happens to be the same length that was missing from the Watergate tapes. But it's just like, is it like what happened? That was when Epstein walked with his father on the beach and the other with the aliens, you know. Anyway, I don't know, but yeah, sorry.
I just can't get over Trump going, are you guys still talking about Epstein?
Right.
Epstein, nobody talks about that creep anymore. I was like, dude, you got tweeted that you were on the list like a month ago.
Right.
That's just
true.
Wild.
Oh my God. All right.
I gotta go, guys. I don't know if we're just gonna leave this shit going or what, but
no, I'm trying. Dude, I wish I was even a tenth as fast as Andreas is. I'm trying to pull up everyone's pages. It's just taking me forever. I feel like an old person with I feel like I'm using a jitterbug over here.
Yeah,
that's fine.
So
whatever.
Yeah, and did you change your name from Meta Egg? Because it took me forever to freaking find this.
Well, I never have. Meta Egg has never made it to Twitter. This is my old Twitter that I've had for like a decade. Up underneath Satori All Me was like my original channel on YouTube. So
everyone go and tell everyone where to find you.
Meta Egg on YouTube. Just go up, look up Meta Egg, look up Andreas or Paranoid American and Meta Egg, and you should be able to find whatever you did. I've got a long history, like everybody was mentioning, my old blog, A Few Shots to Shaman, which is still up. The Sinkhole, still up. 42 Minutes, which is a podcast that I did about 5 years ago where I interviewed everybody who was a synchead at the time. That's still up. So
5 years ago?
5 years ago.
15 years ago.
6. Well, I mean, the end, when I stopped, 42 Minutes is still going. However, I haven't been on it in like 5-6 years, maybe 7 years now. I only did it for 5 years. 42 Minutes was a weekly show we did where we had Bill and David and all kinds of people. Yeah, Joe Alexander. There's a bunch of scientists. There's a couple of movie stars. There's a bunch of bands. I got to talk to Sage Francis. Like, it's crazy, but
Yeah.
I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, 42 minutes is the more structured, like real interview style podcast. And we're the like kind of like what this episode of Synctank has been, like always record is just the spastic. We're just gonna just have a crazy conversation with no structure whatsoever and just see where it goes. So we're kind of like a think tank, whereas 42 minutes is like an expose, real tight communication on who these people are and what they're currently into at the time of the interview. And yeah, it's very structured versus no structure. So,
But I had the structure was Douglas Bowles. Douglas Bowles was a guy who, like I said, is still running 42 minutes. He deserves all that. He was also a member of the Sinkhole.
yeah.
All right, that just needs to be said.
And then we've got MK Ultrasound 723. This is David Charles Plate, the Sync book. If you go to this Twitter page, the best thing to do is you go directly to the highlights section and you scroll through and you get to watch free movies and listen to free music. So it's better than the Pirate Bay.
Much better.
Thank you.
And one more.
And one more. Yeah, where do people find you?
ayahuasca set up? Ayahuasca is this blog. Oh yeah, no, this is my page, but you should look at Bill's website or his blog, ayahuasca. Do we not have that set up?
I've been on the show like 7 times. We never go to my fucking blog. It's fucking.
Oh yeah, well we're doing it right now.
Beautiful. Thank you.
What is it? What is the actual URL for your ayahuasca?
See my name?
blog?
Ayahuasca.blogspot.com.
Type in yeah.
I know Andreas would have already had this pulled up. It's going to take.
No, he doesn't. He never puts up my blog. I'm not really. I'm kind of
Screw
more
that guy
dramatic
then.
right now, but it's just funny. Will's been on for 10 minutes, and you just went through all his stuff, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, can you type in the URL ayahuasca like you would for like iPhone or something at blogspot.com?
Ayahuasca. Yeah, right there. It says IAH.
Okay, well now we're looking at Bill. Can we?
I know
Hey,
because I
I'm a
can't
blog.
see it
Come
big enough
check
on
me
my
out.
screen to
It's
know
good.
the spelling of how we're putting it here.
You see my
Okay.
name on my screen? IAHUASC.
I literally don't just because my screen is
Okay, well look
4
at
inches.
Cyanide Pill's comment in the chat right there.
Unfortunately, I can't see comments either because I'm using a teleprompter screen, so I can barely see you guys.
Okay.
Hold on,
All
I'm trying my best. I swear
You
to
know
you.
how to spell
I've
ayahuasca?
I've been trying to. Oh shit, where did it go?
It's AHUASCA, and with an I in the front.
What am I doing wrong?
I don't know, but it'd be cool.
You know, it's actually, this is poetic as fuck, so we'll just leave it at that. Ayahuasca blogspot.com. If you know it, go to it. There's a new post up. It's almost like a hieroglyphic. If you know what that means, check it out, because as far as the evolution of film album sync, I think it's hit a
No, there's no Y. It's like See, that's blogspot.
Here it is. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. We're gonna get to it. We're not gonna leave it without going to Bill's freaking
There it
awesome blog that he's been doing for years.
We talk about Mark LeClaire a lot on this show. His name drops a lot.
There it
There's
is.
a 10-volume correspondence with Mark LeClaire that's in the blog. Check out this first post right here, this hieroglyphic. Scroll down a little bit. You're going past it. So this is I don't even call this a sync film. I call this a soundtrack. It's The Last Temptation of Christ with Swan's album, My Father Will Guide Me a Rope to the Sky, plus their new album, Birthing.
Which ends with what song?
Press play at around 17 seconds. You'll figure it out. But this isn't really a sync film. This is composition. This is one of the most beautiful films you'll see. I recommend it on a projector in black and white. And yeah, you know what to do.
Oh, what's the last song on the new album? What is it called?
Well, so the album My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope came out 15 years ago in 2010, right?
Right.
I had done sync work with Last Temptation of Christ with that album and a few other Swans albums. But this new album, Birthing, that came out last month, the final track is Rope Away. And in the context of the story of Last Temptation of Christ, it's just magically poetic. It's one of the greatest things I've seen in a long time. So there it is. I got on Synctank's plugs. This is sweet.
Yeah, no, it's a super heavy pairing because first of all, I don't know if anyone listens to Swans, but if you do, they're very cinematic. So they have almost that like I'd kind of equate them a little bit with like Godspeed You Black Emperor, but with more every so often lyrics like vocals. Unlike unlike Godspeed, but it's very structured and there's very much like a real composition. So it's so cinematic in its communication. So there's something extremely resonant about the heavy intensity of Last Temptation of Christ with the heavy intensity of Swans. It's really what he's describing is really crazy and tight. So just so you guys know, I don't want to speak for you too much here, Bill, but Bill and I have a kind of a different style in certain ways as far as sync films go. He's a purist, right? So like he wants people to like take the components and like really have the ceremonial kind of experience of you play this and you play this. And I have this thing where I'm just like, I want to make it as accessible to people as possible so they don't have to like put all that together like themselves and like get these pieces of media. But I can appreciate and understand Bill's desire to have people have that experience because it's really not the same to just push play and have it immediately available as to go through the work that's part of the ritual. You know what I mean? So
work and doubt are essential to these pairings. So if you put in the work yourself, there is this doubt. Did I get it right? Is this going to work? And then once you break through to the center to where it's actually working, I feel like that's the necessary octave to bring it to the highest level. Not to say that any other schools of thought are wrong, but it's just kind of where I stand on it. So
thank you. And so
thank you for the time to,
now we get to look at Paranoid American's new digs.
Oh,
right?
I just unshared my screen. So let's just talk about paranoidamerican.com. I guess my camera's also off. There we go. Paranoidamerican.com. We were talking about Bavarian Illuminati for a while here. I mentioned the Mozart and the Bach and the Beethoven thing. If you are interested in that, you can go to illuminaticomic.com, and we got a whole 52-page comic that's all about the founding of the Bavarian Illuminati and their connection with the Jesuits and how they infiltrated Freemasons because Freemasons said that it's not cool to LARP as Knights Templar anymore. And then the Bavarian Illuminati are like, you can LARP in our club, come with us. It was at this convent of Wilhelmsbad. It goes pretty deep. And we could talk about Bohemian Grove. We talk about Skull and Bones. We talk about Lady Gaga, Mickey Mouse. It's all in this one little comic. So I highly recommend that. And David and I have been working on one about Kubrick and the Golden Bough and I guess Kabbalah. It's going to be about like everything all at once. And really, it's one of the cooler ones because the very first chick track is called This Is Your Life, because the first chick track was about a guy that dies and he goes into like purgatory. He goes to, the gates, and they're like, we're going to watch your entire life in this big movie theater, and God's like right next to you, and we're going to see all the horrible things you've ever done. And that's why it was called the movie opens up and it's called This Is Your Life, which is also what Kubrick said about the Golden Bough, where he said it's not mythology, this is your life. So I feel like there's also like a really cool synchro-mystic connection with the chick track format itself and this concept that we've been working on for the last 2 years.
Totally. All those unseated will await the next show.
So go sign up to that one at kubrickcomic.com. It'll just ask you to put your email in or whatever. Just do that, because the very first few people that get to snag this, you might also get a chance at some original David Charles plate glisses, and who else knows what kind of cool stuff we're going to think of. And I want to say somewhere back in the pipeline is the Waco comic that Will doesn't even know that we're working on, but we're already working on it.
I'm working on it. I just spent a whole year to teach myself how to ink comic books. I got the whole script written. It's down there. I just haven't done.
Well, in that case, check out the Paranoid American one that's going to come out before Will's. We're going to beat him from market.
I'm trying, bro.
Whoa.
So slow.
You're gonna really Scott him to Spielberg with Kubrick's Napoleon. Good job.
I mean, you can like Ants and Bugs Life. You don't have to only watch one of them, right? All right, I love you guys. I love the audience. Thank you for this over 4-hour episode. We should do this.
I knew as soon as Will jumped in after the 2-hour mark that we were going to go for close to another 2 hours. So good job, Will.
See you guys
later.
There's what we need.